go. I've got the script.
Wait, let me hit my button too. Hang on. Okay, it's not letting me do it as well.
It is recording. You're good.
It is recording. All right. Okay. So Jeff Gay's got the recording. It's not letting me do it. Okay.
All right. Good to go. Well, thank you. Just before I start the meeting formally, thanks to everybody for coming here today. It's exciting to see everybody in person. I will now go through the meeting script. This is our first hybrid meeting. We're going to run through pretty much the same script that we ran through with the Zoom meeting, so I will get through that as quickly as I can. I'm Rob Pettit, Chair of the Needham Board of Library Trustees. First, I'd like to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. When I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. For the Library Director, Assistant Director, and staff, we have Ann McFate, Director.
Here.
Dimitri Kyriakis, Assistant Director.
Here, virtually.
Jeff Arnold, Reference Staff Member, is Recording Secretary.
Here.
Danielle Tawa, Archivist and Technology Specialist.
Yes.
Do we have Diane Brown?
We do. I don't think so. I don't know.
I unfortunately can't see everybody who's present. Is Deb Lovett? Okay. Are there any other staff members who joined?
I'll tell you in just a second. No, that's it.
Okay, perfect.
No, I'm here, but I don't. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, hi. Hi, Deb. And I'll go through the library trustees. Carol Thomas.
I'm here.
Anna Giraldo Kerr.
Here.
Kay Cahill.
Here.
Rick Hardy.
Here.
Tom Harkins.
Here.
Myself here. Jay Fialco.
Here.
Thank you. And we'll go through some of the guests that we have here. For agenda item 3, we have our Director Search Consultant, Maxine Bleiweiss.
Here.
Thank you. For agenda item 4, we have Town Manager Kate Fitzpatrick.
Here.
And Assistant Town Manager Dave Davison.
Yep. What time?
What time, right?
And
Very impressive.
Assistant Town Manager Katie King.
okay, Assistant Town Manager, yep, Katie King.
Here.
Thank you. And for agenda item 14 for the Library Foundation of Needham, Joan Smith. All right, so I'll introduce the hybrid meeting. Good evening. It is now just past 7 p.m. on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, and this is an open meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees. This meeting is being conducted as a hybrid meeting under an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, or the act, which was signed on June 16th, 2021. The act allows public bodies to meet remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded. For remote participants, this meeting will allow public comments by means of the chat function only. For this meeting, the Needham Board of Library Trustees is convening both in person and by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the town or the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all participants are participating by video conference. On video conference, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to unintentionally screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. For effective and clear conduct of our business, for compliance with the act, and to ensure accurate meeting minutes, I will restate our ground rules. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. The chair will invite members by name to provide any comment, question, or motion. To the extent practicable and within the bounds of open meeting law requirements for conducting a hybrid meeting, we will keep the meeting style informal, as we do when we meet purely in person. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And for any response, please wait until the chair recognizes you so that we do not speak over each other. Feel free to wave to get my attention. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. Any member of the public signed into the meeting remotely as an attendee may submit written comments or questions via the chat after identifying his, her, or their name and address only. Library staff will monitor the chat inbox and alert the chair to submissions there. The chat submissions will be recorded and become part of the official record of the meeting. Each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote, which is a requirement of the act. I now request a motion to automatically continue this meeting to Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in person with the same Zoom ID number, our next regularly scheduled meeting, should any technical difficulty arise tonight to keep us from completing this meeting. So we just need a motion for that.
So moved.
Thanks, Rick.
Second.
Thanks, Anna. And I'll just run through the roll call. Jay?
Aye.
Thank you. Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Kay?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Thank you. So I've gotten through the script. Good to get that out of the way. We've got a lot of really important items on the agenda tonight, so it's great that a lot of us can be here in person. Obviously, the biggest items on the agenda relate to the director search. So with that in mind, we'd like to start off with Maxine, who we've retained as our director search consultant, who's advising us as trustees on the director search process. So I'll hand it over to Maxine.
Thanks, Rob. This is exciting. I've never been to a hybrid meeting before.
We haven't
First. You haven't either. This is the first. Great. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted you've invited me. And I've spent a wonderful day here in this library and getting to know your community. So I'm going to give you a little background on me, talk a little bit about the process, the challenges that one faces when doing a search. We're going to talk about the interview, what to look for during that interview process, talking to staff during this time, so important, the timeline, and I'll just ask that you hold questions at the end because I may answer them during the parts. So thank you. So I am a former public library director in Connecticut, 3 positions. So I was a candidate, accepted 3 positions, and I can tell you I remember every single minute of each of those situations. Since then, I've also served on interview panels, as library directors often do for others. And I've attended and spoken on hiring and recruiting at national and international conferences. I had the wonderful experience of writing a book on economic development for libraries after I got involved in that, particularly in Newington, Connecticut, which relates to things we'll talk about later. And I started the first big makerspace in public libraries, which was an adventure and a good one. But I'm currently helping library directors and boards by giving courses and coaching and helping people find the right candidates for positions. So my goal is for every library to be as great as it possibly can be, because they're often hidden gems in many people's minds who aren't like you around this table, who already love libraries. And they really need to be uncovered and repositioned so that every single resident can take advantage of them. But one of the most daunting jobs a town and a library board has is finding the right director. And with people love being a library director, and dedicated service like Anne's shows us that you don't have a lot of chances to make it right, because people do stay, and which is wonderful. So the process, you've already begun, have a good beginning because you have a great ad that basically says, we want you here if this place is right for you. And just like real estate, you have location. So people who are looking all over the country are looking, but often people who are happy don't know that they would be even happier in a town like Needham. So they need a nudge, and they need to be introduced to the concept. And then if you can clearly identify what it is that's ahead of them, and in your case, you pointed out a strategic plan, that's even better, because library directors like to do certain things, whether it's space planning or strategic plans or activating their community in different ways. So they need to know what's ahead of them for whatever stage in their career. Attracting the person who isn't looking takes a lot of effort, a lot of reaching out. And word of mouth, placing ads in the right places, because librarians do read them. They're always looking to see not just what might be good for them, but who's moving around and wanting to keep up with it. But I'm looking for people whose work others admire and that I've admired over the years. And I'm actively working the phones and my computer, except for today. I was doing that pretty much full time. And my being here today was sort of a test of walking in and seeing firsthand what it would feel like as a person looking at your position and say, what does this feel like? You know, how am I welcomed or not by staff, by community, et cetera. So I can report that it's been a good day. But once you have a good pool of candidates, then you have some challenges, which you're all well versed in who have done this before. And they include prioritizing the assets of candidates. They don't all, you're not going to find the perfect person. So you need to prioritize. You know, verifying what you heard them say, because some people are really good at being interviewed, less good at carrying out what they say, right? Crafting compensation packages, which not only include the usual salary, health benefits, et cetera, but also opportunities for exposure to new ideas. You want them to keep learning and to keep being exposed to new things. And then hardest sometimes is identifying the soft skills that you need, such as intellectual curiosity, how they're going to connect with people, how natural they are at those kinds of things. And this only gets harder because libraries have changed exponentially in the past decades. And I always say we know best what we learned first, and my experience, as I'm sure all of yours, was just checking out a book at a library. And that's an important part of what happens, but it is hardly the whole thing. So I'm going to just tell you 5 big things that have changed for you to be aware of and thinking of. And first, library strategic planning starts outside the library in the community. It's listening to the community's needs and hopes and desires. So you want somebody who's going to be outside the building and listening with their ears to the ground, and people who are connected with different facets in your community, and certainly talking to being connected closely with town administration about everybody's observations. You know, the second is that acknowledging that learning comes in all different forms. Hands-on learning is important, visual learning, auditory learning, experiential learning. And, you know, the advent of makerspaces in libraries was not a fad, but a necessary thing for everybody in the community to be able to look at this building and say, I belong in there. Whether I was a book person or not in my youth has nothing to do with whether I should be in that building. If I need to know something, I need to know that that place is for me. So I think that really came to bear when we saw the use of YouTube statistics be higher than Google statistics when people wanted to know how to do things. You know, it's really important. And, you know, so you can say, how will your library embrace that kind of reality? And third, people are more age agnostic about learning. So libraries have slowly caught on to that. Age is less important than interest level. So as you know, if you love dinosaurs as a kid, you'd read everything you can get your hands on about dinosaurs or whatever. And if you're older and want to get into something, sometimes the wonderful children's nonfiction is the way to start. You don't need a big thick book or whatever. But library offerings and the structures that support that have to be able to embrace that fact, because we can all learn from each other. Fourth, removing barriers to using libraries has been so important, and you've already done away with fines. Hooray for you, that's wonderful. Libraries are also doing a lot of racial justice training, reorganizing space from inside and outside the building. And outside, again, is really important because people need to say, I need to be in there. I want to be in there. So, and also a lot more is at stake because people can post their thoughts about your institution on social media. And you have to be aware of what that is. And finally, and maybe a little surprising, is young adults, meaning 18 and above, look for the ability to act. They don't want to wait. So think of Greta Thunberg and climate change, right? What she did. Younger people who are hired need authority and power and opportunity. So libraries need to rethink the hierarchy that gets in the way of contributions of new people to their staff. And that's an interesting one. But any one of those topics can provide fodder for a conversation with your top candidates. So stuff to keep in mind. Speaking of conversations, the interview process should be carefully crafted and takes time. It's a long-term commitment. Candidates need to get to know you as much as you need to get to know them, especially if they're not local. And the screening process has to be really careful and deliberate. I've seen excellent potential candidates screened out because they didn't meet what someone thought needed to be the criteria, but it wasn't. So, now that we have Zoom, there's no reason to not talk to a lot of people. Site visits are wonderful if you can get to a place if a person is actively in a space and running it, but virtual tours that a person can give you of their building will tell you a lot also, and I can help you to see what to look for in that. So the interview, when you finally get down to the table, keep the questions broad. Ask questions based on what's happening in the world, in the nation, and in the community. Always say something like, this is happening, whatever it is. Just say, the demographics are changing in Needham. Where's the library in this? Let's see what they say. You'll learn a lot too. Ask how did you rather than how would you when you ask questions. Anybody can practice how would you. You can't practice how did you. Really consider an informal way for your prospective candidates to mingle with staff, to mingle with members of the public, take them out into a restaurant, as Kay and I just experienced, and you watch for signs of confidence, for eye contact, you watch for body language, you watch for all those things that are going to be critical when they step forward. And then do a debrief. Do a debrief with both the candidates and say, what did you hear? What did you observe? What did you see? And with the people that they mingled with. How did that feel? Because as we know, it's often more important how you leave people feeling than what exactly you might say. So the ability for a candidate to speak well and make connections with staff and community leaders is absolutely paramount. That person you're hiring is a public figure. So some sample questions, I've got a lot more, but I wanted to give you a couple of ideas of questions. And something like, the staff is the engine of the library. How have you empowered, motivated, and activated staff to carry out the library's vision? How have you used other resources to carry out the library's goals, like town departments or consultants or community members, colleagues, professional organizations? Because nobody does it alone. A smart library director calls on other people. What have you learned about your community during this pandemic time? And in hindsight, what would you have done differently during this time? You want to see somebody who has learned from what they just did. How do you organize a library's staff and space to meet the goals of your institution? Space is a constant conversation. And the person should really love to think about space, because it signals to a person whether they should be there or not, whether they will feel comfortable when they walk into a space. And then what would be really important to me is, what inspires you? Who inspires you? And what do you do to keep abreast of new thinking? Because you want this person to be constantly learning. They're not going to, their progress isn't going to stop the minute they take your position. So you got the interviews, you got the tours, you got the mingling. What do you look for during that time? And the American Library Association recommends a certain list: common sense, decision-making ability, people skills, vision, integrity, financial acumen, human resources knowledge, even when you're part of a town government that has those resources as well, and organizational skills, and I would add political savvy. Then acknowledge that nobody can do it all, so you need to prioritize these things. And I always believe it's best to factor in a candidate's potential over their specific past experience, because you don't want someone who's just going to take that past experience and put it here. You want someone who's going to see what can happen here. People rise to challenges that they might not have had previously, so that's exciting. Communication with staff. It's a really uncertain time and unsettling time for staff, for Anne. I've been in both situations, you know, keep them updated, even if there is no update. Saying there's no update is updating. So make sure that they're not in the dark at any point, and more than you think you need to. The more they're informed, the better they're going to feel. Timeline, 4 to 6 months I found is average. You know, be ready to wait for the right person. Don't rush it. Your library will function really well in the meantime. The staff that I talked to today, I can tell you, your library will function just fine on a day-to-day basis. You may select a person who needs to relocate, and that's going to take extra time as well. So you need an interim plan. Note that. So some final thoughts. You're going to learn a lot during this process from every candidate, even the ones you don't choose. So take good notes because you're going to be able to use them. Think of this opportunity as selecting a person who could be the equivalent of the head of your community's university, right? That's what the library is. It's a community's university. And the challenge doesn't come around very often. So enjoy the process as you simultaneously thank Anne for her decades of dedicated service to Needham. So that's what I have to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have or anything that wasn't clear. Tom?
Yes, my question is, have you had experience with a director search selection with our type of town charter?
Your type of town charter,
Yeah,
meaning specifically.
it's a good thing your people are here tonight.
Government structure.
You mean the government structure, like a
Yes.
board and a town manager? Oh, yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I've worked in it,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so you realize that the trustees themselves do not do the search and selection.
Well, we're all involved in the process.
Yeah, we're in the process.
And the town has ultimate control over the process, you know.
I find often everybody wants to raise their hand to be part of this process because it's important.
So, I know you've only been here a day, but what would you say, just on first impressions, because that's what somebody, a candidate will have, what might attract someone to this position and what might discourage them in your observations?
Well, nothing discourages you if that's what you want to tackle. No, that's a good thing. What I wouldn't ever want to walk into is a place that's running perfectly and has a brand new building and a brand new strategic plan, whatever, and you just keep it going. That to me would be boring. So it depends on your candidate, what they're looking for. Here you're poised to do a new strategic plan. So it's a new chapter. Your community is changing, age-wise, demographically, everything, which is really exciting to be able to stop and listen. Changing times are great times for libraries to be poised to respond to them. So as the person comes in, if it were me, I would take some good concerted time to get to know my key resources, which are staff, and listen to what their observations and thoughts and hopes and dreams are. Hear what their abilities and their interests are, because they may have nothing to do with the job that they have been assigned in the past. But because of all the changes you've heard of, there are some talents that people can put forth that can be key in libraries. And then I would work on the strategic plan and do a lot of listening to the community, hold focus groups, community meetings, everything I could to learn what was on people's minds, and all in concert with the town manager and her staff. And from that flows everything else. Yeah, but that's where you start.
So I have a question as well. You mentioned that, now that we have Zoom, we can broaden our horizons a bit in terms of where we're recruiting from, and we have more of a national reach. Do you think that there's any advantage or disadvantage to bringing somebody in from outside New England as opposed to from the surrounding towns?
Yes and no. I think it's great to have new perspectives. New England can sometimes get caught in its history as opposed to the vision. So you want somebody who understands and respects the history and the wonderfulness of New England, but also brings new thoughts. And sometimes that's best experienced in someplace else. Someone who, for instance, was born here but experienced New England but then moved elsewhere could be a good kind of combination of candidate. I have found the best public libraries to not be in this country, but to be in Canada and Scandinavia and the Netherlands. So if you can find candidates who have been there, who worked there.
Well, we're not that far from Canada.
We've got Zoom,
No,
so-
Canada's easy.
We're pivoting the search.
If they would just open those borders a little bit.
It's not paying for relocation.
So I was thinking, we have Kate and Dave and Katie on the agenda next. I was thinking that that is kind of a natural transition in the discussion because they will be leading the committee that will be running all of these interviews. And I thought that it might be a good time to hand it over to them to talk about where we are right now, what the schedule is going to look like for the next couple of months. And then we can discuss, I think timing is probably going to be the critical issue here.
Right. So thanks, Rob. So based on meetings that we've had with chair and the vice chair representing the trustees, we had worked out a schedule, and as you know, we worked together. I think the posting came out great. Teamwork. That was really. We had all been cadging things from other library searches, and it was great. I really appreciated your work on that. That was really helpful. And we got it posted last week, and we had targeted. There had been I think an expectation that we were targeting trying to get this search done by November. We worked backwards, and by working backwards, we had ended the posting the end of July. And so then I think there's been some thinking things. I've seen some emails. It's like, oh, is this really the right time? I mean, the downside to extending it is that, people who are looking might go somewhere else. I think that's important, but I'm not persuaded by it because sometimes, as you said, Maxine, we're looking for people who aren't looking necessarily. So we have no concerns with your extending. I need feedback tonight on we have a new rough out of August 13th. If you want to go even further, it's all going to be after Labor Day pretty much at this point in terms of interviewing. And, unfortunately the municipal calendars, ramps up. So it's easier to do interviewing and hiring in August. On the other hand, everybody's away and it's always hard to get people in for interviews.
So does the interviewing not start until the posting is closed?
Oh, yeah.
Is that the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably didn't totally get that
Yep.
when we initially
Yeah.
talked about this.
Yeah, once you have all the applicants and you down select to make sure they have the minimum entrance requirements, you need to make sure that that's all fair and equitable and that, everybody has that shot as long as it's open.
That's a little different from private sector. I've
Yes,
worked in
fair.
nonprofit private sector most of my life.
Yeah, that's, I can see why, but
Yeah.
yes, we always have a hard stop. Although usually our postings say in case, there's some reason to accept one afterwards or something like that.
Given that plan, would it make sense for us to consider keeping the posting open through the end of August? Is that what we would be imagining with the, or is that too long?
Well, Kate just mentioned August 13th. Maybe we should visit that first.
Okay.
Or midway through August. That would give us a total of six weeks of open posting, which I don't know how others.
From now?
From when it was posted. It was posted beginning of
It's
last.
posted in a lot of places. We're holding off on there were 3 more till tomorrow till we have the right date.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about who's going to pay for that, and I will have that offline. too.
Oh, yes.
This search is now a third of our budget.
Do we have any candidates so far?
9.
9. Wow. I was gonna say, what's the minimum amount of, that we're, okay, great, that's a good start.
You know, unfortunately with Indeed, you'll often get 100, but they'll be like
Right.
looking for paramedic jobs and it's.
I don't know,
understand,
it'd be fun to be
But
one.
none of those 9 came in through Indeed, so people are
Okay.
looking. In Massachusetts, I think as Maxine said, everybody knows who everybody's leaving and everybody knows what job they might want someday, so you'll get those people right
That's
away.
And Maxine's been talking.
Yes.
That's encouraging.
Yes, she said.
I
Oh,
have
sorry.
a general impression that Needham is an attractive, it would be an attractive place.
Right.
for-
We'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to think so.
One
I
of
don't
the
know if
questions that I've received from people who don't live in the area is how expensive it is to live here. And how easy it is to live elsewhere and get here.
We're not still offering the house with the position, right?
Unfortunately, library directors can't go virtual. You know, not yet at least.
Not at all.
Although I will say, we do have a remote work policy that allows the manager to agree to, some work from home, every week or, and it's actually very attractive
Yeah.
as a recruitment tool. But
Yep.
I also feel, Maxine, you probably agree, like in the beginning,
Oh,
people need to
you
be
gotta
in the
be
library,
there.
right?
You gotta
So,
Yeah.
but in the future, if there's and we're all remote now on snow days. So again, if we could circle back at the end to that date decision. One of the things that we've had very good success at, we don't always do, but we have sometimes a pre-assignment. For instance, when we hired our public information officer, we created a request that the candidates give us a proposal for how they would expand our emergency alert system and how they would implement it. And they came in and they made maybe a 15-minute presentation on that. It was really useful at capturing the skills that we had identified. And circling back again to put a pin on those core competencies, we need to hear those from you. I mean, we know what we want, but we really want to hear from you what your priorities are so that all of the interviewers will have that and they can be looking for them. But it strikes me that some version of give us a 15-minute tour of your library and tell us what's important to you and give it to us in a video, that will get at a lot of things, right? That's just an example of how you might incorporate that in a process and also try to get somebody here fast. If you do have, site visits is something that we haven't done very often, but it's certainly for a 1 or 2 at the end, especially if they're local.
Yeah.
Is something that could be considered. We have built in a mingle at the end. We were really thinking of at this point, including having staff have access to the final candidates, which is really important at the end, and the trustees who haven't been involved yet. That we haven't done the public, in my experience, the public is generally used for like the superintendent and sometimes principals, but if that's something you want to talk about, we can talk about that, but it's a whole different experience. So, but we don't need to get there yet.
I can just add that, Maxine, we mentioned that if we don't bring outside people into the search, we'll have an opportunity to bring them in when the strategic connection with the strategic plan down the road.
Yeah, that would be critical.
Right. We've done that, I think, in past years too, brought in a lot of folks from the business community, from the local community to help that
Yeah.
committee.
And maybe I could also mention some new polling work that we're doing. Talk to you about that at the end. So that maybe help your strategic plan.
We have to hope we recruit train lovers.
Yes.
They seem to gravitate here. for some reason.
My office is on the same train. As is Katie's.
We can be on the phone from town hall and say.
Yes, that was Ann.
Add an engine to the
Yes.
logo.
If you do pick a mid-August, we can get resume screening and figure out how many people you want and, get pre-assignments set up and, there's work that you could do there. So.
Yeah, I like the pre-assignment idea.
Yeah, and I think we're open to.
Would it be a single assignment, or would they have an opportunity to talk for 15 minutes about whatever they wanted to talk about?
We can work that out.
I don't know. I'm just curious.
My experience is it's better to compare the same assignment,
Interesting.
right? So,
I agree.
yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are you also thinking about the pre-screening part before the pre-assignment? Is
a lot of pre-check.
So our process is that we have a screening selection committee that's a very small committee
Yes.
that goes through for the minimum mentions requirements and those competencies. If if you've said, nobody without makerspace or, those kinds of things. Or, size of library, whatever we decide to do that, but that's the very first round. But, we have bandwidth issues, as you all do. So, I don't know if we've ever done more than 12. Can you think of
For first round?
for first round?
Usually
It's,
not.
that's, yeah, so, it's just,
Yeah.
there just aren't enough days. And, you need
That,
to
that
give
may
up-
make, depending on how many applicants we get, that may make the initial screening process all the more important.
And we've had very good success in the first round being all Zoom because it was the
Yeah,
pandemic.
yeah.
So again, maybe Maxine, you'd have opinion on this, but if you're doing some in person and some on Zoom for the first round, that can be problematic because it's a disadvantage,
Yes.
in my view,
Yeah.
to be on only on Zoom. So
Yeah.
you probably want to pick one way,
Yeah.
right? But you still need an hour with somebody, and 12 hours is not 2 days with all you have to fit into.
So,
There's
so,
that.
Rob, so we may reach, are you saying to cap it at 12 candidates? Is that the number 12 that you're referring to? Just now?
12
To
candidates
interview,
interview.
yeah.
Okay, so then since we already have 9.
Well, you have 9 applicants. We haven't
Oh,
reviewed
okay.
them
Well,
So
we
you
have-
hope
compared to the
okay,
other
so
applications.
We hope you'll
probably
have
take
50,
the whole-
60, and then you're going to pick the
Okay.
best. The very best will be,
That's why I'm saying the initial screening becomes that much more important.
Yes, I got it, okay.
So one question for Kate, so it sounds like, we'll get a lot of resumes in and then we do the pre-screen with the pre-screen committee and figure out who we're going to call in for interviews. What would the pre-screen committee look like? Would that be the committee that we've been convening so far?
I think that would work.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
And we had talked about, since none of us are librarians, we're still considering a possibility of bringing in an
At the
area.
pre-screen level?
Yeah, pre-screen, so pre-screen would be no interviews. We're not talking about interviews, right?
Correct.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
But you raised the question, assuming we were talking about the possibility of including in the deliberations and the consideration, if only to guide us, not to have any control over, someone who has deep experience with libraries who can help us evaluate that. And the question will become, at what point, in what way would that person work with us? Would they be involved in the pre-screening? Are they involved
Yeah.
in the final deliberations? I'm not sure how that would work. Maxine, I know, mentioned that she knows one person who might be a possible candidate, but I don't know what would be the appropriate way to take advantage of someone like that in the deliberation.
So
People, I do have some stuff coming from the people on the other
That's
side.
fine.
Okay.
Go ahead, Dimitri.
Okay, thanks, Kate. We have a question from Lois Bacon. In the past, a friend at the existing Library Foundation meeting had a representative on the Library Director Search Committee. I know the structure is different, but it would be nice to invite one member from each board to be part of the final interviews. That's from Lois Bacon, former trustee. That's one question. Another question, comment is pick a single assignment for the presentation. It's the only way for comparison of candidates. That's Lois, I believe, as well. Carol Thomas has a question. How widely is the position being advertised and where? And also, last one from Lois, who is on the existing search committee that Rob mentioned? And I'm happy to repeat all that if you'd like me to.
if I could, right, so, and if I could answer the question that came before that, which is, I think my initial inclination is involving outside of Needham individuals on a pre-screen is a violation of the privacy of the people who are applying. And I'm not
That wasn't
comfortable with
what I
that.
was-
Right, I just wanted to be clear. When people agree to come to an interview that might involve somebody from outside, they know that, but when they sent it in, they have some expectation of privacy. That's what they-
We're all looking at our stuff.
Sorry about that. That was me, sorry.
But you reacted the fastest.
Yes.
Well, my phone sitting on the table. To the Library Foundation and Friends, I mean, I think that we can talk about that. It's certainly a mingle opportunity. That actually would make perfect sense. Agree on the Lois's point on having the same assignment. So the search committee, I think this is a little bit of a misnomer because we don't really have a search committee. So if you have like a town manager opening, there's a search committee perhaps, and the same people, and they just forward names on. What we do is we have 3 or 4 rounds where you have the people who are going to screen the resumes, make sure they meet the minimums, and invite people to come in. Then you're going to have the first team who interviews, say, the 12 or the 10 or whoever we agree that we're going to interview on Zoom, and that we've talked to Rob and Kay about having 2 trustees. It will be a member of our senior team, a member of HR, and I think somebody from another library. Either we have colleagues, or Maxine has found some. I know plenty of library directors who I think would volunteer to do that, but it's a big commitment, and the more people, the more commitment, right? So, but they do. Department managers do this routinely for other communities, and so they know there's going to be reciprocity in the future. And then we have other departments that we feel works the most closely with the library. The school library is something that I hadn't thought of that we talked about, so that's something we could think about. Health and Human Services, Culture and Leisure, and I think in this particular case, building maintenance might be a really good person to have on there, because there's, when you have a manager who's a director who also has a building to run, there's a lot of building maintenance that goes on. So somebody in that group would be on the first team. The second team is the same HR representative, so there's consistency, 2 different library trustees, somebody else from our team, and somebody else from those the groups that we talked about, the other department managers. And then you end up with your third round of coming to the final trustees who are not in the interviews, staff. We call this a round robin sometimes. Mingle is another good word. You might set it up at the library in different places. You have your final 2, you might have final 3. They meet with people, then you debrief and you get their feedback. We have final meeting, and then the library trustees. I have to make a recommendation to the library trustees, which you have the authority to approve or not. I will say, I will not bring you somebody I don't expect you to approve.
Yeah.
So we will have all had time to debrief.
There was one
sounds
more
like-
question from Carol.
Sure.
Carol had one more question. Her question was, where is it being advertised? And let me just read it again. How widely is the position being advertised and where?
I don't have the email in front of me. We use the Mass Municipal Association, we use Indeed, we use diversity.com, and diversityjobs.com, and that goes to a huge catchment of groups that represent communities that have been marginalized. The Mass Board of Library Commissioners, Simmons, and then we have 3 more. Oh, Katie's so good with the technology.
Yeah, I think Maxine had some that she.
LinkedIn, MMA, our own, the Library Journal, the American Library Association, Black Caucus, and the American Library Association are the 3 that we haven't done yet. So we
Need a date for those.
need the date. We'll get those up.
And I've posted on every free listserv that exists.
Yes.
Thank you.
But,
Getting the word out.
but I haven't done Canada, so I will work on that.
Or Scandinavia.
Scandinavia too.
The
Actually, I was
Netherlands.
going to kind of, because you never know people who are
Yeah.
moving from place to place.
We don't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, question for Kate. Trying to understand, since Needham has embarked on this equity path, how is there a method in place to minimize unconscious bias during the resume screening? For example, blind resumes is one that is usually used. I'm wondering, what are we, particularly if we're advertising in all these different boards?
We have a brand new software that we are probably not ready to roll out in August. It's more like September, October that will redact identifying information.
Mhm.
I don't know if we have the capacity to do it ourselves with the Sharpie. I know some.
Yes, whatever method, it doesn't have to be, you know.
We can talk about
We
it.
can talk
Yeah.
about that. It's something that we are working very
Yeah,
much
that's
towards, and we
great,
have this
that's great.
software, but it's sort of like, we've had some transitions and they're still piloting it, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to glitch anything, so.
No, I
we-
think that thick Sharpie. will
Yeah,
do.
But in the meantime, maybe there's some guidelines for us to take into account somehow. in
Yeah. Usually
connection
just
with it.
crossing out the name and even the location.
Yeah, and sometimes the educational institutions.
But wouldn't a cover letter, say,
Well-
describe where they're from or?
Well, yes, but there's some key people will have access to the information, but when you circulate it to the committee, that, and then gather the information that is important that.
For the screening.
Yeah.
For example.
Yes, and and once you get to interviews on Zoom, people will be able to see and talk to each other, and they'll say, here's where I went to school if they want to, but yeah, you haven't selected on that. And that, one of those that we read about a lot is, it's the unconscious piece of, where they went to school, people who went there, they went to your school, that makes them,
Exactly.
oh, and that, yes,
Yeah.
Kathy,
Pushing the
right?
screening.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So we are working.
You hire who you know, who you feel comfortable that.
Yes, we are very much committed for this, for all, but this is a big one for us, because it's coming really, first, is to get it as diverse a pool as we can get.
Right.
Yeah, is there a library staff member in the initial situation?
No, our practice is have staff at the final end. It's been, there are circumstances where it's just, it's been uncomfortable for staff, and people are put in awkward situations, and we've had problems, so that's our practice. We
So,
want staff input, but having one person representing all staff, and I'll just give you a personal example, is if sometimes if you're an internal candidate, it can be harder to say what you would do differently here or what you would do in the future because you've already been there. And if you're a staff person and somebody might say, well, I wouldn't have set the children's room up this way, and you're in the room. It's an awkward position for staff. That's just my experience. I'm doing HR for a long time, and that's where I'm.
what would be the mechanism for making sure staff have, are included in the process in some way, or are communicated with, how should we set that up, I guess?
I spoke to a lot of staff today, and I asked them a series of questions and give them an opportunity to mail them or email them or send them to me if they think of anything now. So I've got a pretty good picture of the kinds of things that they might say, wish for, or
So that's staff input.
and I'd be able to share that, with no names, but just kind of
really
But would there be a single person though who would be primarily responsible for communicating?
Yeah, where we are in the process, just, I just feel like it
I
would be
don't know,
good.
just.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
the
I'll be
staff-
providing regular updates to the
Yeah,
trustees,
that type of
um,
updates.
to staff. Oh, you meant to staff?
I'm just wondering, before we're dealing with it vaguely, but before we move ahead, what will it be? Is it Dimitri? Is it Ann? Who is providing updates to the staff on a regular basis and be responsible for doing what, Maxine is saying would be important? So someone has to, come up with a plan for that.
Yeah, because we want the staff to feel some buy-in and,
And Maxine, I can talk with you about that redacted list of, questions and attributes that people want, because that will be good for those of us, which will really be all of us as trustees who are on these interviews, to know what staff members are looking for. That's one of the most important pieces of the process.
We just need to talk a little bit about, we could give you a proposal on how to keep the staff informed.
Good.
Great.
Other than having to watch the trustees.
Really cool.
Which is so convenient though with this owl.
I will suggest that because Zoom has made it so easy recently to get a glimpse at people, no matter where they are in the country, that you could err on the side of more than less from
Oh,
past.
the
maybe.
12, in terms of the 12? you mean?
Right, right. I mean, if it's 20 minutes with each person, sometimes that 20 minutes really tells you whether we're on the right track or not.
Yeah, you could, and then you could keep the pre-assignment for the second round.
Yes, exactly.
And I guess to a large degree, this will be driven by the resumes that come in. You know, if we get a bumper crop, and I guess this is a question, I'll keep on going for a second, but a question for Kate and Dave and Katie. You know, once all of these resumes come in, let's say that we get, you know, 50 that look reasonably good that have got, you know, all of the others that are completely inappropriate have gotten sorted out. You know, will those of us who are doing the first rounds, which group, I think that'd be Kay, myself, and then the other folks who you mentioned, would we go through those and kind of make the determination at that point as to, you know, have we gotten enough in and how many should we, you know, will we sort of have a meeting at that point to go over what we've seen?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I think that we will probably screen out anybody who doesn't meet the minimum entrance requirements, right? So
Right.
you have to have an MLS, you have to have 7 years, right? So that nobody else, you won't get those. If you look at them and you say, we don't like, you know, we only like 4 of these people on paper, you could extend the search. You could do that.
Yeah. So I think that will be an important decision point for us once everything has come in. And we'll get a much better idea of, you know, are there 10 resumes that we love, or are there 15 or 20 that we love? And,
Right.
and that will really
Maxine
hopefully
raises
guide
a really
the
good point.
process.
You could change your process where you tell people it's a 20-minute interview, right? Because, you know,
Right.
doing an hour for 20
Yeah.
is
Right.
impossible.
Good point.
But,
Right.
you know, lightning.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know how much that tells you either, so it's a hard one, but we could decide then.
I think it can tell you a lot.
Well, and especially if you plan ahead, how are you going to use the 20 minutes?
Right. And
Right.
for this kind of position, you know, someone who's got to make an impression.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting.
And if I may, I'm not sure a school media person would,
Would be good. Okay.
yeah. Maybe for a head of children's services, but not this case.
I think I saw a question from Lois in the chat. Unless my eyesight is failing me.
What could I possibly have said?
Let's see.
I can't read it. I got the wrong
What
glasses.
did I write?
The last one from Lois was about who's on the existing search committee that Rob mentioned, but I think that's been addressed.
It's been answered.
Okay,
We're good.
I'm sorry. I saw it pop up. Okay.
That's okay.
We're all. Okay.
Yeah, so I would just be interested to hear from the librarians in the room and the staff, what's their opinion, it's purely an opinion, as to how important it is for us to bring in somebody who actually has been a director, who maybe has been a director at a small library. Is that a very important thing, to find somebody who has done the job maybe in a smaller way before?
It
You
depends.
mean versus being an assistant?
Yeah, versus being assistant or some other position.
I can address that. I can say sometimes in some libraries you have an assistant who's done all the financial stuff. They may not have been a director, but they've dealt with finance committees continuously. They've explained the library budget. That kind of experience would be really significant. I'd be ashamed to write that off because they haven't had a director position. Also, you have to, just like Maxine mentioned, what have they done? What have they feel they've accomplished? You know, there's a lot of things that aren't covered in just generalities. There are a lot of initiatives that now I know I'm sticking up for assistant directors because I know a lot of them in this area, but many of them have accomplished a lot of things that don't really may not come out. You know, they'll mention some of the top things in a cover letter as much as you can, but it would be interesting to, you know, how people approach that. Sometimes if you just use that cutoff, all I'm saying is that, have you been a director? That doesn't really show you the whole picture, you know, and as Maxine mentioned, somebody could have been a director, they can do this in their sleep. So that depends. It depends. Depends what grabs you as you're looking through this material from people applying.
Maxine, what do you think about that?
I think it depends, which is not an
Yeah.
answer. But I would not rule out someone who hasn't been a library director. At the same time, size of institution can sometimes, people who've had experience only in very large situations may not have had their finger in as many opportunities in their communities, because this is really you got to get to know everybody.
And there is one last thing I'd like to throw in there. Our neighbor in Natick, the Morse Institute Library, they just hired a new director. She's been an assistant director, Mickey Wolf. I know of her. I've been interacted with her a couple of times. She's done a lot. I forget if the town she's come from is Sharon, but she's been assistant director. But she got hired as a director. She hasn't had directorship before, so Natick saw something in her that appealed to them in terms of getting her as their new director. So that's just one example that's recent.
And as you sit in the catbird seat, what's your thought on that question?
I think it does depend on the individual.
And there are some comments in the chat too from other staff.
There are some assistant directors that are dynamite.
I have one comment from Veronica. Especially small libraries have combined roles. I know my first library I worked at had a reference was also the assistant director technically, but there was no job title of assistant director. And Lois mentioned, and this is valid too, also managers of branch libraries from some larger systems, Cambridge, Boston, some other systems.
I've also experienced head of children's services who can be poised, because often the children's department is like a microcosm.
That's true.
I feel just kind of going back to what we're looking for. Obviously, there are a lot of different things, and we're going to be honing some of these soft qualities down, but there's kind of a balance between strategic vision on the one hand and operational knowledge on the other. And, personally, one of the things that I'm going to be looking for as we get the initial candidates in is just having some good examples of how they've taken their knowledge of the on-the-ground operations and transformed that into one of their strategic goals. But I think that's, that's something that I think would be good to hear from the other trustees and staff members and everybody else who's here tonight. What are your overarching goals for these initial interviewees and for the process in general?
I'd love to see what their interaction with their communities were in the community that they worked in. How much outreach have they done? How involved were they with different organizations in the community? What kind of partnerships they formed in terms of strategic plans and programming at their libraries?
I mean, to follow up with what Demetri just said, I mean, in our last strategic plan, it was clear that we were hearing things like, that the library just doesn't exist within the four walls. What is the library doing to offer services outside of the four walls, in different venues and different areas, and being an advocate of that, and then pushing that concept out there, providing more services that people don't normally think of as library outside of four walls.
And there's another comment from Lois. Oh, I'm sorry, Rick. There's another comment from Lois. Maxine's suggestion is to their reaction to COVID-19 closures and how they keep their library in the forefront.
And, we still have, it sounds like, and we'll discuss the timeline in a moment because that's an important sort of decision point to be made today, but it sounds like, we do have a few weeks to consider these attributes before the initial screeners actually start. So to the extent that anybody has thoughts, I would definitely recommend, reach out to Kay and myself. We're kind of the point people and the trustees for this process, and we can collect any thoughts that you have, whether it's from trustees or staff or the friends or the foundation. We'd love to get input and thoughts about what you're looking for. And we can sort of convey that into, when we go through and review the resumes and conduct the initial round one interviews.
I would really strongly urge all trustees and staff, if they have thoughts, ideas, please communicate, because we want everybody to know that their voices are being heard, and as we proceed.
So I think that leads us to the question of timing. This is pretty critical, and thank you to Kate and Dave and Katie tonight for having some flexibility on that. I know that we're shooting for a clean timeline, but obviously getting a great candidate or a great set of candidates in is really top priority. Before I came here tonight, I went to the ALA website and just went through about 20 or 30 different library job postings throughout the country just to get an idea of what they were usually doing as their lead time. And it seemed like, 5 to 6 weeks was pretty standard based on what I saw. Usually not longer than 2 months at the very, very longest. But to me, I personally, August 13th seems like a reasonable timeline if we can then convene, see what's come in, and make that decision whether or not we need to extend it due to lack of enough good resumes.
Yeah, so what is going to happen in terms of all the resumes that come in? I mean, are we at that point going to be able to see them, or how does,
So
How do we know?
we'll screen out the ones,
Just-
I think that would just be on us to screen out the ones who don't meet the minimums. And then we will work with HR to see if we can anonymize the resumes and cover letters for the pre-screening. And then we would convene our work team and, what we put them up and we walk through it. Basically what we've done pretty regularly is yes, no, everybody has their own yes, no, maybes. And then we start with the yeses and then, then we, you get a sense of whether you feel like you have enough candidates that way. But then there would be the go, no go, right? You could repost.
Any other thoughts on the timeline, doing in August 13th? Do you want to give it an extra week or keep it at that so we can generally keep track with the timeline?
Do we need a motion?
I don't think we need a motion for this,
Maybe more of a consensus.
but a consensus, yeah.
I think that's
Carol
great
with her
because
hand up.
Carol has a question.
Carol, yep.
Not a question, but just an observation that almost nothing happens the last 2 weeks before Labor Day. It seems to me, and so I think it would be great to see, use the August 13th, see what's come in, but then if we extend, make it longer than to Labor Day, because I don't think we're going to find, a lot of action in that couple of weeks.
And then also, this gives about a month, actually exactly a month from today, right? And for those of us who have contacts in the library community, this is a great time to reach out if you know anybody. Spread the word, even if they themselves would not be interested in this role, they might know somebody who is, and we're certainly casting a wide as net as we possibly can. So I think in terms of the director search, that covered the bases I personally was hoping to cover, but was there anything else that we wanted to go over before we
Could I
discuss?
just
some
ask,
further-
does it seem to be consensus not to interview in August to try to, get to this, picking your number, deciding whether you're gonna go out, but holding, because we could interview that last week in August with the first round that wouldn't include Dave and me who are on vacation, but I think there's a lot of people on vacation. The only other thought is,
would we have the committee available during that last week of August? I mean, I think I would be.
Do we have to decide that now, or could we just see at that time?
Sometimes it might be a good thing. Well, some people might not be available, but if they are, it might not, it's a slow time. So, it's not a bad time to do it if people are available. Right?
So are you talking about the last week of August as the time where the maybe 20-minute Zoom interviews?
Yeah.
Kind of thing?
Yeah.
I think that's very doable because no matter where people are.
Yeah.
Probably can do that.
Yeah.
They don't want to drive too far for just 20 minutes.
I'll be around.
You do. Okay. Let's see, I'm available.
If,
If you need a substitute or a, stand-in or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm always happy as well to.
Tom?
yeah, so what, right now, if we extended the date to August 13th, right? Then the people, things, and then you're going to send out that pretest, or would that be before that?
so if the consensus is to do the 20-minute interviews with a bigger number of people, you couldn't do the pre-test because you wouldn't have time. So you might save the pre-test, which actually makes a lot of sense for the committed number that are like really the finalists.
Yeah.
I think there's value to the pretest
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I would do it in the second round.
I
rather
wouldn't
than
want
the
to,
first.
It weeds out
I
people
wouldn't
who are
want to
not that
eliminate that,
interested.
but, so the 20-minute thing is just to weed out,
Initial impressions.
if we have 12 or so,
Right.
we weed it down to,
It would just completely depend on,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
what the.
Mhm.
I think what Maxine has pointed out is that we would traditionally, if you were bringing people into Needham, we couldn't do more than 12. But if you said, hey, there's 20 who look on paper, you know, let's Zoom them for 20 minutes, then
Right.
you get down to
Yeah.
something manageable.
And be aware that some people apply not intending to take the job.
Yeah.
So you may have some extras there anyway.
Well, that's
So
when the
better
pretest
to do a
comes
little
in.
more.
How do you know who they are?
They won't do
So they don't put
pretest.
like a note on the
What's the
application?
point of them?
Experience,
are they
Yeah.
part of
They just want to practice.
negotiating
Or
salary increases?
negotiating, yeah.
Uh-huh.
yes.
But
Yeah.
we've had, even during the pandemic, an alarming number of people who don't show up for their interviews.
Really?
Not at this level necessarily.
No, not at this level.
It's a very interesting.
Well, the market's so good, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Bill.
And there are currently about half a dozen other towns in Massachusetts that are doing director searches. Most of them are considerably smaller than us, so I think we're not going to be going head to head against most of them, but you know, there are competitors for this role. All right, any other items on?
I just want, I have a comment here.
Sure, sure.
Having participated in the last two director searches and selections, I have to say this is excellent. I love the way this is happening, and I'm glad I'm not involved, but I'm glad to wait for your selection to evaluate. Yes, definitely. I don't want to go through the time, those other things.
Okay. I know we have a couple of other quick items for Kate and Dave, but Maxine, I think we're all set.
Had a long day.
All
I
right.
know you've got to get back to Connecticut.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Drive.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Nice
to
Thank
meet
you very
all
much.
of you.
Good luck. Good luck.
Hi, Maxine.
So for Kate and Dave and Katie, you know, one of the items on my list to discuss was the website. And really that's just to say congratulations to everybody,
Woo.
especially the library staff
Yes.
who've really put in a ton of effort
Yeah.
over the past
Bravo.
year.
Thank
And
you, staff, for all your work.
Everybody.
And thank you to all of you for making it happen too. It was really a team effort, and you know, the website looks amazing, and most importantly, it works amazingly too.
That's great.
Has
Thanks to the
anybody?
Foundation and Friends.
Yes.
Yes,
On
thank
the
you
Very
so
big
much.
Lots of thanks.
So we're very happy to have that up and to have it done more or less completely during the pandemic. In terms of items to be discussed with the three of you, I didn't have anything else on my list, but I'm not sure if you had anything or any of the other trustees had items to discuss.
Kate usually comes with.
I have
surveys,
one-
survey data.
I have one.
Yeah.
Our library focus has been, you know, focused on, you know, this process. So if you have things for us, you know, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot of you in the next several months. Is there anything you need? But I did want to tell you that we're shuffling our reporting relationships. So Katie, who's our new assistant town manager for operations, will be assuming responsibility for the library in our how we organize ourselves. And not that Dave hasn't done such a good job.
Thank
And
you.
I
has
wore my welcome out.
really appreciate it. There is perhaps more synergy with Health and Human Services and Economic Development and Park and Recreation and a lot of things that we are doing, and we could strengthen the cooperation with all of those groups rather than finance. But Anne has been such a good and loyal contributor to the finance team. So really want to thank Anne for all of that, and thank Dave. And Katie is here, and now you've met her, and but the three of us will continue through the entire search until we have a new person. So great.
Great. Looking forward to working with you, Katie.
Yeah, it's nice to meet her in person, and
It is.
we'll make sure there's a smooth transition.
Yeah, we got a lot of big things on the forecast. You know, we have a bunch of really big initiatives that are hinging off of the director search and that will kick in as soon as we have a new director. The biggest of which, of course, is the strategic plan. and that will have its own committee, which will be a bigger committee.
Yes.
And then there are a couple of smaller initiatives that tie into that. We have a staffing plan or staffing consultant role that we'd like to get going once we have a new director. We've done some preliminary research into what some of our peer libraries are looking at for staffing levels, not necessarily in terms of overall staffing, but with the mix between full-time and part-time. Our percentage of part-timers is considerably higher than most other libraries in the area. So that's something that we want to just look at as part of our strategic plan and figuring out how we deliver our services, in the next few decades. And then the other piece of that is also our space. Wellesley is currently in the middle of a very heavy renovation of their space, but we want to just start looking into that. We've got a 15-year-old facility here, but we want to figure out, is the space being used optimally? We have, I believe, a contract already in place with the Collins Center, but we've deferred really acting on that, given where we are or where we were with the pandemic, and now with a new director coming on later this year. We thought that would go part and parcel with the staffing review and the overall strategic plan. So those will all be some pretty major initiatives for the new director whenever he or she joins.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
I didn't. Dave, did you?
Well, other than to remind the committee that unlike last year, because of COVID-19, many things were delayed in terms of processes. But this year, the capital budget process is going to begin as it normally does, beginning of August, and the budget guidelines will be coming out after the town manager's consultation with the finance committee in the beginning of September. So the feedback that you want to provide to Ann in terms of submission is it's clear to me that there won't be a new director hired in time in order to have an impact on those budget submissions. So things such as the space planning and extra resources that the committee may be looking for to planning for the strategic plan, you'd want to have that incorporated with budget submission.
Right. I think that's a very good point. I think for a lot of these, for the space planning study, we've already gotten that's being paid out of state aid, I believe. And then presumably, to the extent that we go with a staffing consultant role, that would probably likewise come out of state aid. But Jay and I actually had a chance to meet with the finance committee this past month, got some very valuable insight from them and shared our own insights. But I think the overall message that we got from them is that to the extent that we've got these requests that we've made in the past for making some of our state aid funding to be ongoing, especially when it comes to our electronic resources, we'll really have to provide more information about how we would use the state aid money that would be freed up. And that's something that as a board we can consider. I'm sure we can find very, very good uses to put those funds towards.
Sounds like Dave's saying that's happening very quickly, not by August, right? Is that
the capital process for submission for the next 5 years?
Yeah. Oh,
it's not just for what's next year; it's the 5-year window that capital processes, because we have to see if we have the funding. Because, for instance, the space planning, which sounds more of a reorganization of the interior layout of the facility, but if it was capital intensive, you are running up against a very expensive next phase of the school buildings investments that's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, which suggests there's going to be limited funds to do something for any of our facilities, such as the library, that have had an investment in the last 20 years to do any sizable expenditure for those facilities.
I may have misunderstood, but are you saying that we're going to need to come up with a proposed budget covering 5 years as to the monies that we'll need, and we need to do that soon? Is that
the 5-year plan?
Capital.
The capital plan is you already have technically the first 4 years unless there's been something dramatically changed, such as in the marketplace, is already locked into place because you submitted them.
I
You're
see.
basically updating the fifth year.
Got it.
But
Okay.
if there is something that's changed, that let's say there was a request for 2023 that was in the last 2 years of the plan, but either the project needs to be delayed or it needs to be accelerated because of some market or unique circumstances, that can be presented and submitted with the capital submission. So it's two things. It's updating that which you have already submitted and telling us what you're looking for in year 5.
So next year hypothetically, because before we can come with a request, we need to have, a pretty good underpinning and understanding of what it's going to cost and what the advantages are. And really that's what these studies will give us. They'll give us a presentation to explain what the value is.
And the strategic plan.
And the strategic plan, which will be a major piece. So if we were to come next year with next year's budgeting process, would we be precluded from doing that?
No, you would not be included. What I was just trying to convey is
Competition.
that, well, you always have the competition. Yes.
More so than
That is there.
It's heavy competition.
And because although the library is near and dear and an important community asset, public education system
Schools have a lot of-
There's a lot
takes
of going on
takes
around.
priority.
Several schools.
But what I was mentioning is if there was something that you wanted to incorporate into the upcoming budget year, you should be thinking about that right now. And what I'm saying is for the fiscal 2023 budget year, because we're in fiscal.
Right.
Right. So, but certainly, and I would anticipate that the strategic plan may have an impact on what's submitted in the operating request for FY24, 25. You have time for that, but focusing on just 2023, if there was something that you wanted to, but at the
Capital.
very least, whether it's capital or in the case of 2023, the operating budget. Because certainly with the finance committee, we've had an appreciation to have a meeting with them. It's not just going to be simple, this is our request, and we think these are great reasons, a great idea for these reasons. That in itself is not going to change the finance committee's primary role on a go slow approach. So the longer that they know about something coming forward and the reasons behind it and getting familiar is always beneficial for that year that the funding is being sought.
That's very valuable. Jay and I had a chance to preview some of these items with them last month. I think that was we were broaching the topics for the first time. But I think, hopefully next time, or maybe the time after next time we meet with them, we'll have a study in hand, have a little bit more information. We can build off of that so that ultimately we have a business case for whatever it is. And the new director will also play a major role too, that he or she may move this in one direction.
But we gave them a heads up.
Yes.
Ongoing communication is really helpful.
And that's something we'll definitely keep in mind over the next year or so. With, there are a lot of big pieces that are going to be in motion. So we'll certainly let you know and the finance committee know as we start developing those initiatives. Great. Well, thank you three for joining us today.
You're welcome to stay around if you want to hear about,
I'll be seeing lots of
You do read the minutes, you know that. Hopefully we can keep Dave coming back too, because you often have finance questions.
Yes.
So you're not out of the July meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gail, thank you so much for showing us and the staff to show us how this owl works.
I think it may be helpful for some of your board meetings.
Yeah, and even staff meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. The
It is.
small, it's great. Thanks, everyone. Very
Yeah,
good.
thank you.
Thanks, have a great night.
Bye.
Though I do feel like I'm obligated now to run the meeting, given.
Sorry, Jay, we're interviewing you.
If someone would have just come and look at it online, they're gonna say, so there's something about that guy.
nobody wants to sit.
I'm gonna come down, sit next to you, Ann.
So don't worry, the camera's going to follow you.
The camera will follow him.
So we move on to our next agenda item, which is the director's report.
Minutes.
Oh, I skipped right over the minutes. My apologies. So Ann sent us the draft minutes from the June meeting. Does anyone have any comments to those?
I do.
Okay.
And number 9, the Library Art and Exhibits Committee report, there's, in 3 places, I'd like to change the word K to the Arts and Exhibits Committee, mainly because I didn't do all of these things myself, so I want to make sure. So for example, the very first sentence in number 9 should read, the Arts and Exhibits Committee has been working to recruit artists. The next,
Fourth sentence down.
yeah, the fourth sentence
Yeah.
down, the committee, instead of
also.
K,
Just
yeah.
just
committee
replace
also
K with
reached.
the,
Yeah, and then you don't have to change it every time, but down in this next paragraph, the second to last line, where it says, in addition, K is considering whether Needham Art Association, it would be, the committee is considering whether Needham Art Association.
Okay. Any further comments to the minutes?
I had one. My turn? Rob, is it my turn?
Yes, yep. Feel free to go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, on page 3, number 5. I just wanted to make sure that this is correct. Paragraph 2, certainly the second sentence, all physical copies of the financial records are, I thought they were in Ann's office with digital versions on Ann's computer. Is that correct? And should that be added?
The physical copies, not on the computer.
There are physical copies in the library director's office, correct?
There are physical copies, there are paper copies and there are digital copies.
because the way it reads, the
Okay.
physical copies are in the computer. I
It
can't do
just- Yeah, so just needed to add in Ann's office with digital versions. And then it goes on to say on Ann's computer.
Yeah, that sentence has to be.
We can ask the candidates to tell us what's wrong with this paragraph.
Great.
Guys, I'm going to ask all of you to speak up a little louder as the audio is not coming through too clearly on the other end for our people who are here.
Sure.
Listening on Zoom.
You, okay.
All right, any further comments to the minutes? All right, in that case, I will move that they be approved as amended.
I can't,
Oh, I can't,
chair.
oh, yeah, sorry, thanks, Rick.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll move as amended.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, I'll just do a quick roll call vote. Jay?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Kay?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And Carol?
Aye.
All right, thank you. The minutes are approved as amended. And now we can move on to the director's report.
I don't think I have anything to discuss. Actually, oh yes, the gifts.
Yeah, there,
Still there.
page
Yeah.
5.
There must be looking up instead. Okay, I need a motion to approve the gifts.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Jay?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Kay?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And Carol?
Aye.
I especially love the one by Barbara Apstein, who gave us money in appreciation of the librarians who worked extra hard to make books available. I thought that was really lovely of her.
One question, it's a little late now, but when it goes to the select board, when this is sent to the select board, are the amounts listed there?
Yes,
They are,
yeah,
but they're not listed here.
no. Trying to keep things private, and I'm really annoyed that the amounts are listed with the selectmen. I was told I had to do that. I don't think it's right that people know how much money other people give. But I can't help it, they make me do it. Of course, you could make me do it too.
It's always in the consent agenda, so it's right there in writing. So,
Yeah,
Right?
right there. See it?
Everybody
But we know how
can read
much the anonymous person gave.
Yeah,
Is there a requirement that we identify the person who gave everything? Could we just, could everything be anonymous?
is the report that went to the select board, does that have that person's, the anonymous person?
No, it doesn't, because I don't know who it is.
Oh, okay.
The anonymous person just came to the desk and gave the people at the desk $5 to be used for books.
Oh, I know.
And turned around and walked out. So it really is anonymous.
Yeah. But, the trouble with anonymity is, we don't want to be laundering money through the town or anything like that.
Right.
But no,
That's why it has to be public
there are,
record.
that's why it should be,
If you want the money put in, I'll put the money in.
yeah. I mean,
To the extent that it's a material amount that would move the
Since we're-
needle one way or another, that would be good to know.
Because since we're voting on it, though, to give us, to submit to the select board, it might be better for us to know.
Yeah.
I'll put it in.
So a couple of comments on the director's report. And I don't want to give Dimitri more work, but I saw that he went to designing libraries to meet evolving community needs. If he thought it was worthwhile and it was something that he learned that would be useful for us to know, it would be kind of nice to, if you could share it with us, if it was something if you think it was worthwhile.
Let me go back and look at my notes. I mean, I think it's stuff that I've heard so many times that we've all discussed too. So there wasn't anything that I can think of at top of mind but I'll go back and look at my notes and see, Rick, if there is something.
Yeah, I mean, because if it's the same old, we probably have heard it.
Kind of same old. We kind of covered it tonight with Maxine too about, community focused, community based, the design of a lot of things. I think it's stuff that we've already discussed quite a bit, but I'll take a look at my notes and see if there is something. I'll get it out to you.
If they had any resources to share, that would be good.
You know what it was now that I'm beginning to think about is about 4 or 5 architects. And the reason I went to it, one of them was from TAP-A, which is a local architect. And Jeff Hoover was presenting. Years ago, I'd worked at the Worcester Public Library and it worked with a team of others from the Worcester Public Library with Jeff Hoover. He had worked on the Worcester Public Library. So I was just a little curious over the 20 years, if he came up with anything new. And, it was interesting, but it was, like I said, a panel of 4 or 5 architects talking about some of the libraries they've designed. A couple were public libraries, a couple were academic. So I don't know there was anything really that jumps out to me, but I'll take a look and see. I mean, I think if there were, I would have said, hey, this was really, but I think it was okay. It was okay. It was free. So when it's free, it's always worth attending, to see if you might get something out of it. So, but I'll take a look for sure and get back to you if there was something that stood out.
Rob,
Yeah, Carol, go ahead.
did we actually vote to accept the gift list or do we get sidetracked?
We did.
Yeah,
Yep.
did vote.
Okay, all right. I think I probably said something I don't even remember. It's a terrible
voted in
thing to admit.
That's okay. It's all being recorded.
Yeah, well, all right, yeah.
I just got a couple of notes in terms of, Sarah Breen's adult program had 44 people, and then tween had 39. That's really good numbers. And then the children's petting thing across the street, 150.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah.
That was
There was a
huge.
girls' sports group over there in the field practicing, and when they finished practicing,
over.
they thought it was the only animals.
Oh.
So it shows for future timing of our events.
Yeah.
That's a
We need
nice,
to coordinate it.
But
That's community outreach right there.
Yeah, we need to do more of post-community outreach,
Yeah.
because, one of the drivers much is FOMO, fear of missing out, and if they see that this happened and they didn't go,
Mhm.
people will want to go the next time or will watch things.
the library posted some great pictures of that event on the social media accounts, and that actually got a lot of traction.
I will admit that the weather has done us in because we had to reschedule to rain dates a few activities. But there should be a whole bunch of things happening next week for the children's across the street.
It's great.
Next couple of weeks should be jam-packed.
Well, I know the golf course have their own goats. Perhaps we should have a library goat.
We don't have any close.
I was happy to come across the story walk on the rail trail. On the trail. And yeah, so it was a nice surprise and
Sorry about that, guys.
Well, I tell you that Kurt, the trustees may be signing the petition for the quieting of the trains.
I thought this was called charm.
Do we have any other comments on the director's reports? No. Okay, in that case, we can move on to the financial reports.
No, Building and ground.
Oh, sorry, building and grounds. I'm going way out of order today.
Some of our same old work orders.
Yeah, the clock.
And just to throw out a comment from Veronica, they have a couple of events, outdoor events on the 19th and the 21st, the children's room.
Great.
Can I add a comment concerning the building? Especially as it relates to thinking about what our situation, we might need to look for money to include in an upcoming budget or something. And this is an anecdotal, and I don't know if anyone else has had a similar reaction, but I don't ordinarily spend a lot of my time in the children's section. But the last couple of times I visited, I have spent time in the children's section. And I'm struck by how dark it is in the back stacks of those books. I couldn't read a title, let alone want to hang out there, strolling through the shelves, you know, and I mean, that hasn't been my world, but I have to believe that the library would be better off by having lighting where people can easily, it's not just my aging eyes, where people can easily walk through the stacks of the books. I asked someone if this was like, you know, for certain hours where we don't keep the lighting, you know, but I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but I found it, you know, quite striking.
And I want you to know that that's an improvement over what we started out with. We all complained about the darkness back there, and
I don't think the problem has been fixed, honestly, and I view that as a priority.
You saw it before, you've known
Well,
that it was upgraded but not fixed. You're right.
I invite any of you to take a walk through those stacks.
The nonfiction has always been an issue. However, we had the same issue with picture book section and the fiction section. That we got fixed. We took down the waves that were surrounding the lights, and that improved it greatly. However, from what I understand, the architect sort of didn't understand how tall the shelves actually were going to be in that area. And the lighting he chose would have been fine if they were one shelf less. However, they weren't.
I would say it's a legitimate priority to assess in terms of, you know, not waiting to see what would be involved to make it so that kids can easily walk through the stacks and actually read the titles of the books.
When we went in with the photographer, he immediately, that was the first thing he said, I can't shoot up there, there's no light, so.
Veronica says that
Find out.
Veronica says that there are a couple of lights out around those areas, and the custodians know about it. It's supposed to get rectified.
I don't think that was it, but
Okay.
No,
So-
it's always been dark. It's always been dark. It's an issue, and
So it might be good for us to evaluate, you know,
We tried, and
can we do this with town resources, or do we need to make a capital? I mean, if we're changing the location of the fixtures, presumably that takes a certain amount of you know, electrician time and installation. I know sometimes you can substitute LED fixtures for fluorescent ones and get quite a bit more brightness.
The last time this was looked at was several years ago. Maybe there's something new that could be done to it. I'll check with the
That newer
building-
fixtures, they're
building
changing.
maintenance
Yeah.
department again, because everything has to go through the building maintenance.
I urge you all to walk through those back stacks to see
I'm
what I'm
familiar
talking
with
about.
them, when we used to go, people just kind of made it work, so we kind of avoided it. It was just the easiest thing because.
Dark back there.
Yeah, my girls like to do hide and seek back there.
That's right.
So that's the place to hide in the library.
Yes.
Also,
right.
Maxine noted that the lobby right here, if we're looking at light fixtures, is very dark when you first walk in.
And we've noticed that too.
Yeah.
There's
So
a stack
that's why
over
we
there.
have a plug-in light.
Stack
that we
over
put
there,
out there
too.
with the bags over there.
I don't have the lights on in the
That was the
front.
only thing.
I
that the
will admit
electrician
that we
could do.
actually did a little miniature fix when we did this room. I did get some lights added, but I could not get all the lights I wanted added because there's a conduit that's blocking things. So they could not put the wiring there, but lighting has been improved for this room.
So I was actually talking about the lobby. as
And
you
the
first-
lobby, I know, has issues. It always
The
has.
first, you know.
Yeah, just, just in a couple of
Maybe
years
we
going
should
from
see the
my,
light that
my-
they put out there plugged in. Right
Yeah.
now, we're not plugging it in.
Yeah,
Plug
that
it
might
back
help.
in. Yeah.
I mean, it might be worth asking, I don't know who in the town would be the person to ask about this, but LED fixtures that usually can be dropped into the exact same fixtures that you have for fluorescent, anecdotally are quite a bit brighter.
yeah,
If that works, fine. I just don't think we want a partial solution. We want a
Right.
solution so that when we're done, it's bright enough
I mean,
for
just.
people to wander the aisles looking at books.
And that
One
might
of
be
the
part of the
problem
space
is
planning.
it's not fluorescents back there, it's spotlights.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I've
I mean, just in
discussed
case of
this
my
with
front
the
porch,
custodian
in a
who
couple-
has to talk to
in a couple of years
Okay.
going from CFL
Okay.
to LED,
Mhm.
3 times brighter.
Right, it's,
Okay.
yeah, fluorescence. can be
I've done,
illuminated
I did
now.
that in my basement.
Okay, well,
LED tubes.
if there's an easy fix, that's wonderful, but it's
Yeah.
a fix worth having.
For a short-term fix, it might be worth investigating. But then longer term, that might be part of the space planning or something else to,
Thank you.
Comments heard, comments written down,
already.
comments will be just looked into. Thank you.
So I think in that case, just to keep things moving along, it's already 8:36, so I'll move on to the financial reports.
I have two state aid reports for you. One is just the regular report. The other one is something for you to hopefully vote on, and that is the suggested expenses for the coming fiscal year. Keeping in mind, the new director can always ask you to change it if it has to be changed. Okay.
So one question, Ann, a lot of these items, and thank you, by the way, I went through the budget that you sent over, the draft budget. A lot of these items like overdrive and WorldCat, we're trying to get shifted over to be part of the budget rather than
Right,
paid out
Kate
of state
every year
aid.
puts them in the budget and the finance committee takes them out.
Okay, so we'll keep them on here for now and then remove them if we can convince the finance committee that those are.
That would be convincing for the next fiscal year 23.
Yeah, that's what Dave was talking about.
Right.
We're on fiscal year
This is
20.
fiscal year 22.
No,
right now.
22. Okay. So,
And you will notice that we did spend more than we took
Yes.
in last year, which is an anomaly for us,
oops.
but it's good.
The finance committee will be happy.
Yes, they
Yes.
like, they want.
All good reasons.
And it was right, very
We're on a roll,
worthwhile
Tom.
expenditures.
We won't tell them we're saving it.
Well, that's what they don't like.
Right. Well, when Jay and I met with them, and that was a very useful meeting just to get their thoughts on some of these things. And we heard from them too, previously, a couple meetings ago. But really what we were hearing was, to the extent that we are trying to get some of these ongoing electronic resources shifted to our budget, which we really should. I mean, these are core library programs. And one of them had even mentioned to us at our meeting that, they had to wait a while when they took a book out online. That basically the message that we got was, if we are proposing to move, let's say, $30,000 of expenses from state aid into the budget, we need to provide an explanation of what we would use that $30,000 of state aid that's being freed up for. So we need to, I mean, and part of that is the state aid policy that we have already, but the more specific we can be about that, it sounds like the more likely they might be to approve those requests. Obviously not a guarantee, but just something to consider.
They know
as
that the
process.
extra money is in their minds that is spoken for, is going to be used for something, as opposed to just sitting there as like a candy jar, which
Right, which is
we need to have a candy
there's
jar.
a reason to have that too.
And
but-
a clear explanation for what it is, why we need it, why it's not appropriate to be in the operating budget, why, you know, why it serves the goals and purposes of the state aid funding.
Yep.
One question back, and now, I realize why we didn't, you know, expend all the money this year in the budget as of June 29th. I know we didn't do that, but what happens to that now? Does it go into, does it move over?
This is a revolving account.
No, this is the Needham.
Oh, I
actually, the
thought you
budget.
were,
Oh, no,
I
no,
thought
no.
you were looking at.
No, not that, no. There's $251,000 we didn't spend. And
Salaries, mostly from salaries.
Mostly from salaries, 228.
Well, that becomes what is known as free cash.
Free cash.
Sounds like the lighting fund.
Yeah, it goes into free cash, and then they use it for.
All the free cash funds, all the cash that isn't used by all the towns, different town departments, gets put into a big free cash account, has to go to the state legislature to be approved, I guess. And then comes back to the town, and that is used for capital items.
And that's what they use it, you know, and we can, it's nice for us to get, you know, have something come up for that, you know.
It certainly is.
Oftentimes it's spent at a special town meeting and we do additions and, you know, changes.
It might be worth pointing out to the extent, and we will be making requests to the finance committee this year, it might be worth pointing out that we did have a significant amount of money going back to free cash.
And then they'll point out that
And then they'll say, cut your budget.
that a lot of money was.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried too
Well,
about.
but that was a specific, you know.
Special, yeah.
Yeah.
Pandemic.
COVID,
Yeah.
the library being closed and so forth.
For one-time savings.
It's gone the opposite, right? When people have used, you know, the cash out in their vacations and stuff.
Very few people overspend their budget for salaries, very few. But we're all very vigilant.
You're not supposed to, you can't.
Yep.
If you are going to overspend, I mean, we get every month we get a statement, budget versus actual, and we check it carefully to make sure we're still in sync with everything. But if you notice that, oh my goodness, I'm spending too much money in salaries, what's happening, why this is happening, you go back and look and find out where all the money's going from. And if you realize that you're not going to have enough money in the salary budget by the end of the year, you have to tell Dave and see if some more can be put in, see if they have some funds someplace.
And I believe you need our vote to approve the state
state
aid
aid, yes.
proposed budget.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve
I
as
move
presented?
to approve the state aid as presented.
Second.
All right, in that case, I'll do a roll call. Jay?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Kay?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And Carol?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, I think in that case, we can move on to the statistical. Or was there another item on?
Trust funds, just
Oh, yes.
trust funds, but nothing to vote on because I won't get the trust fund interest. Maybe I won't get the trust fund interest, but it doesn't come out till the fall after the commissioners meet again. And then you get a list of things to spend on.
All right, so I think that leads us to the statistical report.
So this is the May, and next month we'll get June. So the month after that will be interest and to see the website hits,
Yes.
to start tracking that after July 16th, to see what that is.
I mean,
The
I
new
hit,
website.
I hit refresh every 10 seconds when it was loading, so.
Well, there's an app.
Oh, I have a bot that takes care of
Yeah,
that.
there is a bot that does that. It's a Chrome extension that will refresh it every 10 seconds.
Oh,
But it was nice to see the, the circulation numbers where they were for May. I mean, this was still during curbside delivery. And I mean, just speaking generally about curbside delivery, I know it's over now, but that was fantastically implemented. I mean,
Yeah.
it really made a strong case for the library that we were able to keep up through Ann and Dimitri's and the staff's efforts, a significant percentage of our circulation during the pandemic. That was really
excellent.
impressive.
Yeah.
And great to be providing the services to the community during that period.
Cause people to give us money as a result.
Mhm.
Cause people to give us money and donate.
People keep coming up to me and saying, I'm so glad the library's open. Curbside service was great. We really loved it, but it's better walking through.
Yeah.
There's no substitute.
Same thing with trustees meetings.
I'm glad we're back in person.
All right, anything else on statistical reports? All right, in that case, let's move on to new business. So the first item, and I believe this was covered in the director's report, is a few large crowded meetings that are scheduled for this room, including New Year's Needham and then Art in Bloom.
In New Year's Needham, we can crowd up to 300 people who will come to the door and want to come in the room that's really set up for 150. I just want you to be thinking about it and thinking about any improvements that you could make. And I've listed some of the things that we could do. I don't know which would be the less painful. I think the best one would be to encourage New Year's Needham to move the programs to another venue that's larger. The trustees would still pay for the entertainers, but in a larger venue, they'd be able to fill more, get more people in.
And then
Tom?
Yeah, one of the problems is that the larger venues are schools and they cost too much to open.
Rick?
and we don't know what the situation will be COVID-wise
right.
and inoculation of children, but we could also take our lead from the health department and ask their opinion. And the health department could say, yeah, we don't, and we would then advise New Year's Needhams, like the health department recommends, that we do not have.
That's why I put that on there.
Yeah.
There's something to be said, I think, for having the people actually come to the library so that it's part of a library
Yeah.
offering.
Reminds people who may not ordinarily come here that we're here and, functioning and offering things offer, but the problem of too many people is.
With that
a serious
with that
one.
nice room in town hall, please be an
How is
option.
They're already
They
using it
use
for
that.
other
Oh, they use
events.
that.
They use
They
that,
use that
that's
for
one
other
of the.
They use that,
sides.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we
Rosemary
wouldn't be
too.
saying no totally, we just have to reduce the number.
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
possible to just?
Yeah, we'll probably, that's what some venues have done, just limited capacity and maybe offer virtual, for folks to do that.
With a
You're
special,
live streaming.
We'll just put the owl in the room.
Like I told you,
It won't work for that, but we are looking at options on how we can do streaming of larger events.
Yeah.
That is something on our agenda to look at. I will say that that is a very stressful day for me for New Year's Needham, with all those people coming in and out, and it means a lot of people are crowded into this bottom floor, specifically in this room, as well as into the main building itself, waiting to come into the next event. And it may be a case of maybe we offer less things with more space in between. Maybe just two separate entertainers.
so you don't have the
instead of
waiting
three.
people crossing each
So
other.
we don't have people crossing each other, and quite frankly, the HVAC in this room is
Yeah,
not
it's
really conductive to having a lot of people. And it gets very, very warm, and that is not what you want for an atmosphere. We are afraid of something spreading. And nor are we going to know what is going to be happening to children at that point, whether they're going to be vaccinated, at which point maybe the pressure is off But the other thing too is that we also do not charge for any events that are here. There's no guarantee that if it gets moved elsewhere, and we're still paying for it, that they're also gonna honor that
If the
commitment.
trustees are paying for the
Yeah.
entertainer, it will still be free.
It should be.
And Lois points out that it'd be hard for the New Year's Needham committee to say in a non-library location, no button is required. If it's a library, then you can say the library's providing this for free, there's just no button. The less events, more space to air out. Second, yeah. So anyhow, yeah, but mainly the button thing. It'd be hard in another location to say it's free. No button.
When do we
Yeah,
need to
Anna?
decide by?
I'm just putting this out there.
Yeah, I know,
now,
I
so
understand,
we
but
can think
when-
about it for a
I have-
while.
Been asked by them, they would like our opinion. I believe they're trying to decide whether or not they're gonna go ahead with New Year's Needham.
Yeah.
You may have another month to figure it out. I can tell them I can have an answer by mid-August. So you can think about it for a month of what you would like to do. But there is some planning involved. They've got to get entertainers lined up.
Right.
And they got to figure out if they can pull something like this off. They have lost yet another venue because the Baptist church is closing. So that is no longer going to be available as a venue for them. So things are getting a little tight space-wise for them.
Do you know, are they using Rosemary already?
They have never used Rosemary before, nor have they used the senior center before.
Because there's a great big room in Rosemary that
Yeah.
It's not as big as you think, but it is big.
it's more
It is big.
open. It's more
It is
open.
more open,
There's a Memorial Park building also.
and you've got the senior
Which didn't
center
exist
too.
before.
Center in the Heights has got a room too that could be used. Whether or not they will do so, I do not know. But it also depends on how many people volunteer to help New Year's Needham, because one of the reasons they like us is that we do the manning for them, so they don't have to have a volunteer here. We take care of all of it.
This might be sacrilege, but could you hold any of the events out in the lobby in the main areas?
No.
Okay.
Much as I would like to, there's just no way we could. The noise level is incredible.
And most of the library events, as far as I remember, are children focused.
They're children's,
Right.
they're all children's events.
So it gets packed.
Yeah.
I've been here shoulder to shoulder with parents, and it's just, it is incredibly packed, so.
We usually have a band or some kind of musical performance in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we have the magic shows.
And we take all the chairs out, so the
Yeah.
cities can all sit close together on the
But
floor.
it's shoulder to. for
Yeah, shoulder to
people-
shoulder.
Yes, it's not conducive to the environment of, you know, to our reality of trying to keep space. So it sounds to me like either we don't participate, or as, you know, in this room, we don't make the room available, or we significantly reduce the number of attendees. Lottery, or whichever way you want to
may
make
be a
it
case-
equitable. you
Well,
know,
it may be a case if we have people sign up.
for
We
some
have the
person.
ability.
Yeah.
Using Assabet, we can put up chairs, they sit in the chairs instead of on the floor, and that way we can control the number of people who are there.
And Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make a comment that at one time, I'm pretty sure at New Year's Needham, we did have arts and crafts in the rooms there, and they were a disaster.
Oh my God, they're
Yeah.
still finding
There's still glitter around.
There's glitter in the carpet still, after all those years ago.
And it was a disaster because, you know, it was just too much, and the people who were running the things just disappeared. Didn't they, more or less?
Well, no, it was more the case of they didn't so much disappear as they were not expecting as many people to show up as did. And they were literally overrun, and the rooms just could not handle that kind of capacity. That and the fact we didn't know they were doing glitter.
Details.
It's diabolical.
Diabolical that we actually had them come back and clean the room for us
Oh, yeah.
because it was that bad.
I believe you.
I
mean,
that's not.
There is something awfully nice about having something here at the library. I mean, it's usually one of our most popular events, and even if we can't have the capacity that we normally do, maybe a reduced capacity, if we have the ability to do a sign up, that might be a good way to do it. And if something miraculously changes and every kid or virtually every kid gets vaccinated, then we can always increase the capacity. But as a baseline,
The crowd that I remember is really the younger crowds,
Yes.
like 5 and under.
Yeah.
So the likelihood that they will be vaccinated by probably not happening.
We could, if we wanted to, if we insisted on everybody sitting in chairs, I can set this room up for 100 with a little bit of spacing in between, so they're not on top of one another. It just means that if it's a intense activity like music with dancing, it's not quite gonna happen, but it is possible to put in 100 chairs in here and still have adequate spacing without having people on top of one another. But that does mean that the numbers that we've seen in the past of 1,400 people, no, we're not gonna see that. We may see 600.
And that may not work for little kids who are a
It
little
may, well,
squiggly and.
some of the little kids will sit. They will sit in chairs. They don't like to. And I'm not so much worried about them running around and whatever, but it would limit us to what we could put into this room.
Well, anyway,
Okay.
what I'm doing this because I want you to be thinking about it. You don't have to make a decision tonight, but just know there are those two groups that come and the crowds are incredible. I remember the last Art in Bloom, it was just before we closed down and going down the stairs, didn't want to touch the banisters or anything, but the place was just jammed with people.
We had over 3,400 people in that building on those 2 days. They do jam this room with a lot of stuff. I do not believe that we will be able to allow them to do what they've been doing in the past in this room.
Well, just think about all the different alternatives.
So-
At any rate, that's all.
And we have more time for the Art in Bloom.
Yeah.
Not as
Yeah.
much as you think. They do need to make a decision on what they are going to do so they can start their fundraising. And start asking for sponsors, so to speak.
It's usually in May.
That is March,
March.
beginning of March. I have a date set aside for them, so if they're not gonna be cut off, if they do wanna come back here, but I don't see how we can let them do what they've been doing in the past, with smushing things into this room specifically. I just don't see how we can do it. They do demos in here. They've got most of their major exhibits are in here, and we've got people crowding all over creation in here. It may be a case of maybe one of the front rooms needs to be made the education room and we set it up that way. I don't know, but I know that we cannot have them have that intensive presence in this room with all of their events. It just isn't big enough.
Okay, so then do you want to move on to security cameras?
Yes, looking at the hour, I'll try to move quickly through. We should have Danielle, I think, has.
Okay.
Is Danielle still with us? I
Yes,
see
she
her.
is. Let me pull her up.
Hello, yes.
Danielle had a representative from Sullivan and law firm, people who put the original systems in and then upgraded it too. But there are still some blind spots in the building. If we'd had more cameras, we might have seen whatever it was that the person left under the table that everybody thought was a bomb. I don't know, let's hope that's just a one-time thing. But the quote she got from them, she felt it was off the wall.
Yeah. How many cameras? Additional cameras was that?
How many additional cameras?
They gave me, I believe, an estimate for like 50, which was a lot more than what I had discussed with them. So I am going to be reaching out to other security firms in on the state bid list that see what is out there and what will work with our system, because that was way above what we were expecting.
Yeah, because I think the last time when we were looking at expanding the cameras, it wasn't that expensive. We added
You're
some.
right, it was.
Yeah,
I believe it was about 13,000.
yeah.
Are we limited to contractors on a certain state-approved list?
Yes.
No,
The-
it's just
The
gonna
same
affect-
list that gave us $700 chairs.
Those chairs, that's their price.
Which they're excellent chairs, not
Yeah, they're very
but
cost effective.
Sometimes the state list will surprise you.
Yeah, okay.
I believe part of the problem is the number of cameras that we need and how the images and, the hard drives would be stored, since after we'd reached a certain point, and that's where it starts to get a little pricey. But I'm definitely interested to seeing how other security industries handle that without giving us a quote like what we saw.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah, no, stretch away.
Oh.
These chairs are nice, but after a while, they do get bad on the knees.
Anything else, Danielle, on the security cameras or?
I believe that's it. Previously, it was a facilities-based contract, so we had to get at least 3 bids. I will be looking into that and seeing how much that has changed, whether or not we would have to work with facilities or if it's strictly in IT. Since it has been a number of years. But to do due diligence, I would like to get at least 3 quotes. And again, just to see what's out there and what they can do with our existing equipment, or if, what we would need to do in order to bring everything up to par and to cover the blind spots.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to check with Anne for a second. I think we can take a brief break right now
I think
because.
she said she's having muscle cramps.
Okay.
So
That's not to the ladies' room.
dangerous, but it's uncomfortable.
Okay. In that case, perhaps it makes sense to discuss the website right now. We can go a little bit out of order. I think we had the budget and capital items, although we've actually already approved those. So just to give a quick recap on the website, it went live on July 6th. Looks fantastic. Many thanks to the friends in the foundation for providing all of the financial resources to bring the website, and that significantly sped up the timeline for getting it to us because we did not need to go through an RFP process. So that was tremendously helpful. And a huge thank you, of course, to all the staff who pushed this through, again, on a very quick timeline. And I don't know if you've heard anything yet, but to me, it looks fantastic. I'm biased, but it looks great.
Yeah.
And also big thank you.
We've been hearing all
Sorry,
good
go ahead.
things so far from the public, as far as I know.
Okay. And also thank you, Kay, for organizing the photo shoots.
Yes, they turned out to have some beautiful, we have a whole backlog of beautiful photos, so that most of which Brian Wilson took, but I took some too. And so I just wanted to check in with staff about making sure you guys have put all of those photos somewhere on the library server where people can find them and access them.
I have downloaded.
Yeah.
I've downloaded them and saved them, and they have been also backed up by all of our backups on the server.
Okay, great.
Great. Yeah, these will be great resources for social media in the future. And actually, if we have any applicants for new director who can't be here in person, we have a video fly-through.
Well, that's actually true. The fly-throughs, we can talk about what we might want to do with them, because right now they're not on the website, or so everybody's.
Oh, we had one that was on the website.
Oh, we do? I didn't know that.
Thought there was one.
You can post it on the Facebook.
Like when you first turn it on, it looks like, you go down the library a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
What page?
I thought so.
I think you just have a better phone than us.
Maybe, yeah.
On my
I haven't seen
laptop.
it.
No, I don't,
On a
I didn't
laptop.
bounce
yeah,
around
on
quite
a
a bit.
laptop maybe.
Uh-huh.
The special effect for the donors.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
And we want
The
to
foundation and the friends get the video.
Okay, we want to thank Arturo for being the handsome face of the young
You
adult.
see a kid, a teenage boy with a.
Yes, on the young
Shirt.
adult section,
Great.
the just for teens section.
Yeah.
He's there.
That's awesome.
No play by play, right?
Yeah, I think I haven't heard much from the community or from I think people are out of town, are relaxing, they're kind of, taking advantage of being able to be outside.
I think more promotion, and after it gets used,
Yeah.
word of mouth perhaps,
When
but we
we-
should promote it.
Regroup back
Yes,
into.
we all, I mean, I need, we got so moved on to the director question so fast, I wasn't.
Was there a press release of any kind?
There was,
There
and it
was,
was in the
okay.
paper, and it was in the,
Okay.
the library had some nice social media posts.
We're still posting it up and we're still dealing with,
It was on Facebook, the announcement. Also, the town does have a new newsletter called, what is it called? Something clever, News You Need.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, Needham News.
Yeah. Needham News.
Sounds like you rub it.
Oh, yeah, just
We're good.
stand.
I got it.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever works. So one other item to note quickly on the website is that we also have a support contract, which we've entered into with Sterling, which is really great. Again, thanks to the support of the Friends and the Foundation. That will allow us to continue getting their help with updating. And certainly there's a lot that the staff can do. This is much easier to update than the prior website, but we're going to have Sterling be able to step in to the extent that, there are any upgrades that we want to do, any changes we want to make in the future.
I'll mention also that the folks at Sterling specifically commended the Needham Library staff as being, especially capable and sophisticated with the technical stuff compared to what they're used to dealing with. They had very, very kind and positive things to say about the Needham staff.
It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, since we're paying for the service contract, please, use it.
Up to the limit.
Right.
Try to break the website.
We will add to that they've shared with us all their training videos, and all of us are aware of all of them. We're going to regroup in about a month and see if there's any particular area we would like some more training on. And if there is, then at that point, we might use an hour or two of the support time for a training session. But we're working through everything ourselves, seeing if there's, in a month, we'll try to reach consensus if there's any one or two things that we would like some more specific training on from the folks at Sterling.
Has anybody made good comments to the reference staff or the search staff about the website?
not really.
Not heard a word.
No, I think everybody's awake.
No, we all should get the word out a little bit more to
Yeah.
friends and family and stuff.
See, the physical, people physically in the library, not the people who use the website.
I think one idea is just to continue putting it out there. And I think,
Yes.
Gail, and you mentioned that we are putting it out there in social media. You can always highlight one section, like, did you know that our website has, an e-resources page or an about,
Yeah,
Needham history or whatever the various pages are.
Yeah, include something in library notes each week, right? About something.
Each month.
Each-
I have
a
a
month,
new
that
issue
is.
unfortunately coming out in September. However, I will be putting out a lot about the website at that point. I do know that when we are doing readers advisory and everything else, we are telling people to go there and we're telling them specifically databases to go look
Oh,
at.
good.
And we tell them it's much easier to find it now,
Great.
which it is. And we're making good use of our databases finally. I think we're gonna see some stats going up on those.
Would it make sense to have some actual physical posters of some sort in various places, including in the library that publicize
You
this?
notice
So
you'll
legacy
find that we've got
Yes.
posters up on all the video boards about the new website. It is in the rotation. And we can start doing the posters again for the various services we offer. We'll put that into the thing too.
Just a poster to make the world, know that there's a new website, they should
Yeah,
check it out.
Something near the circulation desk or something might be
What-
good.
Was it including the news you need?
News You, I believe, I'm trying to think where we are at on that subscription for News You Need. It should have been, I know it was because we saw it and we had some issues the first day because we hadn't quite transferred it yet.
Oh.
But we did, later on in the day, it got transferred over, so we we're good. But it has been there, it's been in both the internal newsletter that goes to the town employees and to the external one. We did get a nice little mention.
How about the school librarians? I know it's, we're off season, but maybe that's another population.
Okay, so we have something from Danielle suggested we put physical posters with our QR code, and that we can generate.
Oh, that's true.
And we'll do that.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that. That's easy enough to do. We have a QR generator that we use, and I'm gonna have to close the door because we're getting bugs in.
Yeah, I just saw one.
The social media graphic that you used was, I thought, pretty great. The, welcome to the world
Mhm.
to our new website. And it actually shows a picture of the website.
Yeah.
that was
was good.
kind of,
Yeah.
you know, if we're looking for something quicker to do.
Right.
That seemed like a good thing to print.
Did you hear that, Gabe?
I was just saying the image that, that you created for social media, that sort of welcome to the world to our website, that was great. I mean, even
thank
that just
Sarah for
printed
that.
out.
Sarah?
So
Thank you,
that
Sarah.
might be the source of a poster of some sort, or.
That's easy enough to generate it as a poster. As
That would
Jay
be a
said, if
great-
it doesn't
Yeah,
have the
that's a good
QR
idea.
code on it, we'll add the QR code.
Yeah,
And we have the ability to print 11 by 17, so we can do it.
good, perfect.
So did you think it was okay to ask for a new telephone system?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's critical.
Well, let's give you an
Yes.
example. In my company, we have a contract which is ending in September. And between the time we've had it maybe for 3 years, and we're looking at new vendors, we're gonna save something like $20,000. If we, of course, this won't be appropriate for the library, but basically everything will work through your computer. So you don't have a physical phone.
That's the way it is for now where I work.
Right, is that you can plug
No
in
more desk
anywhere
phone?
and you have your phone.
Well, no more work, no more desk at office, we've all been remote this whole time, but basically our calls,
So-
whether it be Zoom or
All
phone,
over.
can go through the computer.
1999 is just ancient.
Isn't that awful?
22 years, that's
Yeah.
in electronic technology
Yeah.
years, that's
Yeah.
a couple that's a few generations.
Yeah.
Well, Alexander Graham
That's
Bell
like
signed that
Flintstones,
contract.
Sarah.
Yeah.
We're down,
Alexander Graham Bell signed that contract.
we're down to 2 clear phone lines at the moment. We've got 2 that are incredibly scratchy, so to speak.
Well, they work intermittently.
Yes.
Sometimes you get in on them and they're fine.
If they work intermittently, they don't work.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so we never know what we're gonna get
I
when
tried
somebody calls
last
in.
year and got refused. But
Oh.
Perhaps we can all
vigorously.
lobby FinCom on this. This
If
will
it's
be,
cheaper, then why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Well, one of the problems is this doesn't go through my capital budget, our capital
Mm,
budget. It
mhm.
goes through the IT budget. They're in charge of phones for the town,
okay.
so.
Yeah.
And I might have been at fault last time. I might have been a little late. But I'm starting early this time.
All
Hasn't
right.
even opened yet, and I'm sending what I've written for you. I'm sending this to Roger.
Good.
And if any of us can advocate for that, I'm sure we're certainly happy to reach out to whomever needs to hear it. Just in the interest of time, I will move on to the next item, which is reopening. Any updates worth sharing on the reopening?
I've noticed the building business is increasing. Every day, it's increasing.
Great.
Study room in use is increasing too. We're starting to fill up those rooms each day. Some days are more full than others. We're seeing more people starting to use public computers, though we've never had them all fully in use. And we still have, we're seeing more people coming in and spending the day, so to speak, doing their work.
Parking lot was full today.
Yeah. Wow.
It's great to see.
Yeah.
It seemed a lot, I stopped by briefly this afternoon. It was a lot busier
Mhm.
than even a couple weeks ago.
The word is out.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to equity and inclusion. Do we have any updates on that front?
Not for me. I don't have anything.
Deanna, did you get my forwarding piece to you? I forwarded an email to you late today.
Oh.
You probably haven't
Oh,
seen it.
I would look for it.
Okay.
Any marketing and outreach updates? No, okay. In that case, let's move on to the Art and Exhibits Committee, Kay.
Okay. Well, we just recently met and we're working through lining things up for the next several months. Mark Richards is continuing through this month to the end of July, and then August, which turned out to be tough to fill. Gaellen jumped right in and
I had a previous artist that we have hosted in the past, came in with an application to show again, and she was in the nice timeline. So Paula Pittman Brown will be exhibiting in August.
very
She's ready to
colorful
go.
work. oil painter, and these are really interesting because both of the, this is what she calls on the edge of the forest, and she has images of animals kind of encountering human habitation, and in a very sort of vivid, colorful, contemporary way.
They're big work. She also has some smaller stuff that she will be using in our display case, so we will have the display.
These are
case.
Cutler Park. By the way. She's
Oh,
very,
yeah.
she paints
Yeah.
locally.
We get bears and
Yeah,
Well, in her imagination, right?
well, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a bear.
I'm sure there's
somewhere.
There was one in the South
I
Shore.
think the most.
Right.
Can I add one comment on the art stuff? Because
Yeah.
on the website, I thought it also looked quite
Yeah.
nice.
Yes.
And I would want to say, I remember when we were talking the last time about that front porch
Right.
photos, and there were issues for them in terms of the cost of actually producing it and making the copies. It may be that there are some exhibits that are suitable for online only, and something with
That's
those
true.
photographs might be the sort of thing that can,
Yeah,
you
front
know,
porch.
avoid their concerns about the expenses,
Have
and at
these
the
sort of
same
making
time,
prints.
have an exhibit, you know, associated
A
with the
virtual
library.
friends
The Needham
gallery.
photos.
That's a good idea, Jay, and it's true that the website art page looks really good, and thank you.
They
to
have done a
Kate
lot of
Ellen
work.
for-
I-
She and
yeah,
I
I
both
kept
kind of
on them.
raised some.
I kept on them,
issues,
and
yeah.
we actually had a Zoom meeting where I met with them and I told them exactly what I was looking for, and they have delivered.
And it worked, yeah.
So that might be an example where we're not limited to having
Because,
it
you know, I've
necessarily
reached
be a
out to them
physical
again and
exhibit.
not heard back, and I think it's the cost.
So this,
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay,
virtual
so.
friends.
then
Okay,
just-
I can work with you, and I know them both.
Oh, you do?
Kristen and,
Okay.
And
Carla Sulia, is that her?
Kara Sulia
Kara
is a
Sulia.
photographer, and Kristen is
Yeah.
my gym buddy. So,
Okay, yeah, so
I'll
I'll
be happy
start
to-
an email
Yeah,
group
So
and maybe
just
we
so
can, yeah.
people are aware, when we have 2 exhibits in, what will be up on the main page will be what's on the wall.
Mhm.
On the art page itself, I should be able to duplicate the slideshow and have a separate one, so there'll be 2 separate slideshows on that page.
So if we wanted to do, if we had an artist on the wall, we could have the artist, wall artist and front steps, for
And
example.
the front steps, or
Yeah.
whoever's in the display case, we're gonna be having 2 for September, because it will, when she'll get to it,
How long is is an exhibit
it's
typically
up
up?
for a month.
Typically a month,
Okay.
yeah.
It takes a little bit of time to pull it.
And is there always something on the wall, or is there ever a break?
I try not to have a break if I can. If there's a break, it means we're painting the wall.
Well, if there's a break, that's when you can put the front porch, perhaps.
It doesn't matter, we can just add slideshow.
No, I'm talking
Oh, I
about
see, yeah,
on-
we
online,
don't usually have breaks.
on the homepage.
We don't normally have a
Okay,
break.
okay, good.
We try very hard not to.
Yeah.
If worse had come to worse and I'd had no suggestion, if I could not have found somebody, I was literally going to ask him to just keep up for the summer. I didn't want to, but I would have done it. We've had that happen in the past.
And Anna?
Kate, have
Yes.
you heard from the Asian, I forget
Yes.
the student association, I think, from
So,
high school?
the Needham Art Association, has awarded its
Oh, yes.
scholarship this year to Yutong Huang, who is a Chinese American, student born in China and is doing really very socially aware artwork. And so that's who we're talking about.
No, remember there
Oh,
was
the other
someone
two,
I
yeah,
forwarded to
they
you?
have not really come, they said that was something that was gonna be happening at the high school this spring.
Okay.
I reached
All
out to
right.
them again, I never heard,
No,
I don't think it
do
happened.
you want me to follow? Okay.
I mean, sure, if you want to,
Okay.
reach out and find out, you know, if that's gonna happen next year.
Okay,
But we do have a young Asian American artist, who is going to display with the Needham Art Association in the cases, separate, her special exhibit will be in the cases in November, December, right? When
Yes, I
NEA is gonna be-
suggested this
yeah.
because it's their scholarship award. It gives them a boost to be able to say, this is who we award our money to, so people know that, yes, this is something that they're doing. And we get to show off some really unique art.
Yeah, it's really very socially aware art,
Yes.
raising issues about being Asian American.
Yes. I talked to her by email today. She has sent us what she would like to exhibit. And I have told her that we'll take all of her pieces and I'll be in contact later
Oh, good.
for additional photos and the like, so I can put up a slideshow on the website.
Great. So just so to march through the list, so August, I mentioned Paula Britton Brown. September, Sam Williams is coming back this time in person to do his Black Lives Matter photographs, so he's on board for that, is my understanding. And at the same time, we have a local Needham ceramic artist, Ellen Clancy, who does very classy, sophisticated work for the cases for September. October, we've been reaching out very actively to Tamara Diaz. She's a Cuban-American artist, and her work is also delightfully, I have it. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is
Has she
Sam
said
Williams,
yes?
Black Lives Matter. Tamara Diaz, her work is pretty well known. It's very.
She's agreed?
She has now agreed.
Yes.
She has sent in her application.
Yes, I have her application.
Yep.
And I will contact her for pictures probably another month or so. So I'll have those ready to go up.
Okay, wonderful. So that's the rundown. And then Needham Art Association comes in November, December.
So that takes care for the rest of the year.
Yeah. So so I need votes. We need votes now that the list. We need one for Paula Pittman Brown. And so I'll list them and then we can vote on it. How's that? Okay.
Actually, we can vote all of them.
Yeah, vote all of them,
Schedule.
right?
Yeah.
So I'll mention, okay, so Paula Pittman Brown for August, Sam Williams for September, Ellen Clancy also for September, Tamara Diaz for October, Needham Art Association for November and December, and Yutan Huang also November, December. So if we could move to approve that list of artists.
So
If I could hear-
Second.
And a second.
Right, I'll do a roll call then. Jay,
Aye.
myself, I, Kay,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
and Carol.
Hi.
All right, we've got it.
Okay, great job, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Could
it's
I
a
just
great- great-
ask, could I just ask, Kay?
Yeah.
Raise question. Okay, are you, has the committee gone through all of these or not yet? It sounded like maybe the application wasn't even in for one of them.
Yes, well, the committee has definitely discussed all of these. In fact, our committee members have been helping recruit some of these artists.
Nice work.
And
Yeah.
yes, so they all, the committee's all very involved in every
Great.
step.
Wonderful.
We knew what was coming. It was this case, you were waiting for paperwork.
Right.
Wonderful.
I will move on then to the MacIver series, or Kay, did you have anything else?
That's my other one.
Alrighty, for MacIver series, Carol, do you have any updates on that?
Well, I just wanted to give a broad brush. My thought is that we should definitely do at least one program that furthers our own library's initiative to have programming. And we haven't, I'm not seeing a lot of programming, just partly because we're not doing a lot of programming yet. But whether they be virtual or in person, I'd like to do an equity and inclusion, something that relates to equity and inclusion for one program. And I also want to do one program that relates to climate in some way. And I've been scouting a little bit with people at MIT who might present maybe on electric vehicles, batteries, energy use. Those are my thoughts at the moment. And there might just be two. I don't know whether we'll have three programs this year.
Carol, are you looking at anything for the fall or are you talking spring?
I'm not, I think you can probably give me open dates for in-person or just dates that wouldn't conflict with other things that are in person. If they're even virtual, we wouldn't want to, compete with ourselves.
All right, I'm waiting for the friends to get back to me in a few more dates so that I can nail them down. And then I will send you a list of what I have available.
Great, thank you.
There are definitely a few Sundays. If you wanted to do something this fall, I will have some dates available.
Okay.
So I usually do my programs on weeknights so that it's easier, and probably will do virtual ones on weeknights. But if you want to do something on a weeknight, let me know and I will get it in.
What do you mean by my programs?
It's the program for the MacGyver series, you're the one who's the honcho on it. So if you want to do it on a weeknight, I will accommodate you for a weeknight.
No, I
Those
just
things
didn't
are-
understand when you say you usually do your programs on weeknights, the ones that you're hosting or,
I personally have presented to the foundation for funding, and those are the ones that I am personally am hosting myself.
okay, well, I'm not
What
sure.
comes from foundation funding.
I
do
see,
those from
foundation programs.
foundation programs that come from September to June.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, in that case, we'll move on to Friends of the Library. Do we have any updates from the Friends?
I don't think there's much to report. They're happy with the idea of book sales, happening again, and they're looking forward to bringing in some income from the book sales and doing that work again. I want to mention again, because I think it was a good point that Lois Bacon had, that as we go forward, thinking about the director search, it would be appropriate to communicate with the foundation and the Friends, and to figure out an appropriate way for them to participate in the process.
That absolutely makes sense. I liked actually Kate's recommendation
The mingle.
about involving a representative of each in the third phase, which is sort of the round
Finalists,
robin
really.
mingle.
Yeah,
Because that's what these are the finalists.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's also probably going to be one of the more informal rounds, which might be more valuable than, a panel of interviewers.
Yes.
Search for the last director included 7 trustees and 2 members of the Friends. There was no foundation then. The 2 members were in on all the interviews, but then they did not get a vote. It was just the trustees that voted.
But I'm sure they were consulted, and my guess is that they were hopefully on the same page,
Yeah.
even if it was not technically a vote.
Hmm.
And we'll certainly be providing updates at these meetings. We can
Yes.
provide updates otherwise to keep both
Yeah,
groups
if
in
you
the
would
loop.
obviously go back and, report it, I'm sure you will. Right.
And certainly if either organization has questions for us, and specifically for Kay and me, as the folks will be kind of doing the screening as well, we're happy to meet with anybody from those organizations, and if they have any thoughts or suggestions, we are,
Right.
of course, open to
Once
those.
again, if your organizations have anything and Friends have anything they want to tell us now about what they hope to see, what kind of candidates they'd like to see, but, now's the time, right?
It may make sense, looking ahead to the next Friends meeting, and I'm not sure when that is. If the search process is in process, to have someone speak to the Friends board to give them an update on exactly what's going on with the search process, that might be
Yeah, Ann said
A
it's
good
not
thing.
until September.
September 20th.
so, okay.
Okay.
Well,
We can give
whatever
an update.
whatever the update is.
Right. It could potentially be pretty far along, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
But
true.
we could send them an email
Yeah.
now,
Mhm.
right? Just to tell them where we are, just the key, some bullets of, August, some key timelines that we have, so.
Just
Maybe-
because they don't meet during the summer doesn't mean that they can't meet during the summer.
Right.
Okay, so,
No, I don't
but I
know
think
that
an
we
email
need
is
to
more
have to meet,
efficient
but-
and just.
I suppose I could compose an email that could be distributed just to report on, what we've done so far, where we are in the
And
process.
there's information that's going to be collected for sharing with the staff as well, so maybe the information would be similar in terms of providing, updates.
Yeah. I can kind of summarize where we are at this point.
Yeah.
and
And it'll be the Friends and the Foundation, so.
Yeah, we can distribute it.
Yeah.
Did they have a Friends annual meeting?
Yes.
Yes, they did. And then they had a board meeting. Well, actually, they put it all in one meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
So for the Friends,
Zoom.
it's Bruce
Yeah, sure.
Barnett.
Yeah.
Bruce Barnett is still there, and they have a Margaret Pantridge, I believe, is the new vice president.
Okay.
Is that right?
And
Yes.
and for you guys. who
Good.
can I send it?
You can send it to me.
And speaking of the foundation, Joan, do you have any updates?
Well, we don't meet over the summer, so our next meeting is in September, second week of September.
September 9th.
Yeah, thank you, because I don't make calendar. Our foundation is healthy, doing well. We are rebalancing early. I don't know,
Mhm.
that light ship encouraged us to do that, so, but it is, a healthy budget right now. It's doing well.
Have you heard feedback about the website? Are your folks pleased with it?
The only person, I think I sent it to you, Jan Drake was not happy with the donate button, and she said.
Because it's pretty far down.
Well, she said, well, no, I don't think it was that. She said, when you clicked on donate, you got information, but then you had to do several clicks until you
So
finally
is that
got.
something that they're going to try and address, or?
Should I contact them directly?
No, you should probably go through Dimitri or.
Tell Dimitri what you want to
Okay, all right,
have
let me,
done.
I'll send an email. to
Or Danielle,
Dimitri.
whatever, yeah.
The staff
Okay.
has given the
Dimitri.
Dimitri's
Okay.
one.
Donation. And we'll contact, we'll look into it.
It sounded
Okay.
like the main goal was for the page with donations. Right now, the donations page is just donations to the library.
But the line for
But-
30.
Right,
Perhaps to have a link directly to the Friends and Foundation pages from the donate page.
right, yeah, it's a
One-click
little,
donation.
you finally get there, but it's a little
Too many
convoluted.
clicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you.
And the one other thing I'll just mention is the Friends are giving thought to possibly refreshing their website, now that they're.
I thought you said you were gonna talk to Sterling about that.
Well, we talked about it, then they came back with a more ambitious proposal than the Friends were ready for. But there's gonna be some more conversations, at some point.
The Friends are starting to meet for their anniversary coming up in, I think it's a year and a half. And are starting to plan what they want to do during that year. Their 50th anniversary comes up.
Wow.
So,
I remember that.
Can I make one comment since Joan is still talking with the LFN along with other things? This was our maiden voyage with the OWL device. The LFN paid for it. We're really grateful for their funding and the ability to use this device. And it seemed to me that the meeting went pretty smoothly. Thank you, Gay,
Yeah.
for running
I'm
everything.
learning how it
Yes,
works.
thank you.
It is our first hybrid meeting. Thank you to the LFN for funding this device, which we're going to share, of course, with the board of the LFN and the Friends if they want to use it to hybridize their own meetings. But thank you.
And could I just ask the question, where is the second one funded from? The second OWL?
Is coming out of our technology fund. We decided that we had enough money in there to do it. And we were going to borrow one from the Minuteman Library Network, but they have like a waiting list of they bought a couple. So there's 6 or 7 libraries already in line. And as Gay mentioned, we wanted to daisy chain, so to speak, to make this. I mean, this went well tonight. I think it'll work much better with one more. And so that one came out of we looked at our technology fund and we thought we could fund it. So.
And I found it on the state bid list, so we're going for it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Just say that this has been a learning experience tonight, and I'm learning what can and what can't be done. And maybe I will be hosting from one device and signing on with another device for the OWL.
This is
It went
We
really.
didn't notice anything not smooth.
The senior centers has started to use their OWL too.
This is, it's such a lovely device, and I think with 2, it will just be fabulous.
It'll hit the sweet spot, yeah.
And many thanks.
And I love that it hoots.
And one of our, Veronica says it worked really well from her perspective as a staff member attending.
And thanks to everybody for getting it set up this quickly. We were talking about the OWL hypothetically at last month's meeting. And, some people were talking about maybe having the hybrid option ready by September. So to have it ready now is great.
We're way ahead of the town on this. They're still.
Well, we gave a
That
good
was
demo.
nice.
Yeah, what we can do, exactly.
And apparently the town is also reconsidering the entire website, the town website.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
they
they
are.
are, yes,
There's an
they're
article
having
in the
public
paper.
meetings,
Yeah.
public meetings, listening sessions.
Leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out in front.
Do we have any trustee comments?
Great, no, this was great, the timing with Maxine, I think it was great.
Yeah.
Very.
It was a wonderful thing to combine, both in person.
Very, I mean, I don't know, I think it was by design, right?
Yes.
You get more communication in person. Zoom is great, but to the extent you can do in person, or hybrid, it's better.
I've been pleased by how receptive the town is to Maxine's contributions and to working with us to come up with it collaboratively, to accomplish what is really the shared goal in terms of the library search.
Well, if we are all set for the night, all we need is a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Jay,
Aye.
myself, I, Kay,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
and Carol.
Hi. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Good
night.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone.